começar agora, amigo. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Ministerial Conference, A Blue Agenda in the Green Deal, dedicated to the importance of the sustainable blue economy in Europe's economic recovery and the role that the integrated maritime policy should play in a blue, resilient, digital, social, and global Europe. This conference is organized by the Ministry of the Sea under the Portuguese Presidency of the Council of the European Union. In this context, we invite you to watch the opening film from the Portuguese Ministry of the Sea. We give the floor to the United Nations Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean, Peter Thompson, that will focus its intervention on the UN 2030 goals, European Union as a global actor.
Everybody. Well, Mr. Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, lovely to be back in person here in Lisbon. All courtesies observed, and greetings to you all, and happy World Ocean Day. It's a great pleasure to be back in Lisbon. Beautiful setting for the UN Ocean Conference to be held here this time next year. I'm honored to be speaking here today during the term of Portugal's presidency of the Council of the European Union. And I want to thank the organizers, in particular Portugal's dynamic Minister of Maritime Affairs, Minister of the Sea, Ricardo Serrão Santos, for giving me the opportunity of speaking to you all today. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to address you on the subject of the European Union as a global actor for the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. And it will come as no surprise to you that I'll be doing so through the blue lens that I've become accustomed to looking through for many years now. In doing so, I don't think I'm narrowing my vision in any way. Looking to the sky on a good day, what do you see? You see blue. Look at the planet Earth from space, and it's blue. Think of the blue ocean's coverage of more than 70% of the planet's surface, its production of over half of the biosphere's oxygen, and its role as the planet's largest carbon sinks, hosting of the majority of life on the planet. And I think you might join me in thinking that humanity is overly preoccupied with terrestrial considerations. You don't have to come from an island country like my Fijian home or live along the magnificent coastline of Portugal to know that we live on an oceanic planet. And here it's with a touch of regret that I must repeat my daily mantra. There can be no healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and the ocean's health is currently in decline. I say a touch because that's not what repeating my mantra produces within me, regret. The dominant feeling that is aroused in me when I do my daily mantra is one of dogged resolve to do whatever is necessary to reverse the decline. It's that do whatever element that I'm going to talk to you about today. But first, in case there are any doubters out there, I should reinforce that the decline is observable. It's observable in the ocean's accelerating rates of deoxygenation, acidification, and warming, with the kick-on effects of the death of coral and rising sea levels. It's observable in the ongoing destruction of coastal ecosystems of kelp forests and seagrass meadows and wetlands and mangroves by human activities. It's observable in the fact that the FAO reports that we are continuing to overfish a third of globally assessed fish stocks. It's observable in the escalating accumulation of plastics in the ocean. I should mention chemicals as well. From our beaches to the oceanic gyres, from the sea surfaces to the deepest ocean trenches. How did we get to this regretful situation? We got here because our hunter-gatherer proclivities, inherited, imagined that linear exploitation of finite planetary resources could just go on forever. We got here because in the mid-20th century, we introduced plastic into our lives and bought the pup that told us a throwaway lifestyle was okay. I'm old enough to remember that time. I like to imagine a world in which the industrial age took place, but not on the basis of fossil fuels and the internal combustion engine. I like to imagine that human genius foresaw the dangers of the former and instead powered the industrial age through renewable energy derived from sun, wind, and the ocean's forces. But the damage has been done, and human genius is now having to play catch-up, moving us as quickly as possible to a renewable, recyclable, and sustainable way of life on the planet. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what can the EU do to help lead global efforts to reverse the decline of the ocean's health? In my address to the member states of the United Nations General Assembly in New York last week, I said that between now and the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon next year, there is much that can be done to accomplish the implementation of SDG 14, the ocean goal. I'm taking that all present are familiar with SDG 14, the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda's 14th goal that sets out to conserve and sustainably use the ocean's resources. It contains 10 targets, as I'm sure you know, ranging from pollution to fisheries and from acidification to marine protected areas. And I'll be referring to those targets in what I have to say now. So marine protected areas have been scientifically demonstrated as crucial for a healthy ocean, for growing fish populations and conserving ecosystems. Moving from SDG 14.5's target of conserving 10% of the ocean by 2020 to the 30% target envisaged for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, that'll be a game-changing result of the CBD COP in Kunming this October, if it happens. The EU can and should be at the forefront of ensuring 30 by 30 is included in the framework, with firm resolve to thereafter meet the 30% target. It should be noted that success in reaching these global protection targets will heavily depend on CCAMLR designating further marine protected areas in the Southern Ocean, CCAMLR being the Commission of Nations that has the power to do so. And I want to tip my hat to acknowledge the EU's current good efforts to advance these designations. been on the table at CCAMLR for many years now, scientifically proven that these marine protected areas in the Southern Ocean are the right thing to do. On the subject of fisheries, more countries can support SDG 14.4 and combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing by signing up to and vigorously applying FAO's Port States Measures Agreement. The EU is a signatory, but there are many of its friends who are not. And since IUU fishing can only be eliminated when there is nowhere to land illegal catches, we all have an interest in a universality of adherence to the Port State Measures Agreement. The EU's influence can be a beneficial force in this regard, with assistance to developing countries in compliance resourcing being an obvious area of partnership. Likewise, overfishing can be overcome by reinforcing regional fisheries management organizations and fastidious member state compliance with FAO and RFMO agreements. Overfishing is occurring within a few RFMO jurisdictions with enormous natural resources to manage. So assistance to these RFMOs is another opportunity for immediate partnerships for the good of protection and productivity alike. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to another target. There's a WTO ministerial meeting to be held next month in Geneva. It's well within the competence of this ministerial meeting to bring an end to harmful fisheries subsidies which contribute to overfishing and overcapacity, as well as to IUU fishing. Doing so will bring SDG 14.6 to a successful conclusion and will provide coastal ecosystems and small-scale artisanal fishers with the relief they need from the industrial fishing fleets that have been the chief beneficiaries of these subsidies, thereby assisting our efforts to achieve both SDG 14.7 and SDG 14.b. I apologize for all the numbers I'm giving on the targets, but I'm sure most of you follow it. The EU is called upon to show flexibility and understanding in the finalization of the text of the WTO agreement, but to stand firm on the requirement that there be no further delays. This has been going on for 20 years, these negotiations. There be no further delays in the abolition of harmful fisheries subsidies. Likewise, the time has come for us to get real about the travesty of marine plastic pollution. Finally, a growing number of countries are voicing support for a global plastic pollution treaty, and UNEA 5 in Nairobi next February looks to be the best opportunity of bringing this to reality. As I said in New York last week, what's called for is a robust agreement that gets to the root causes of plastic pollution and enables a truly recyclable plastics economy, including international measures to shift from virgin polymer production to recycled polymers. In the meantime, such is the extent of our dependency on plastic that we find no silver bullet for the plague of marine plastic pollution. Many moves will be required to meet SDGs 14.1 and 14.2, including exponentially increased funding for developing countries to invest in fully functioning waste collection and disposal infrastructure, and implementing widely advocated systems of reduction, recycling, and plastic substitution. The EU has an outsized role to play in these endeavors to end marine plastic pollution. In that regard, I salute the many European organizations working to inculcate the source-to-sea ethos around the world. Diligence in applying the source-to-sea approach to local government, to river basin management, agricultural organizations, and urban infrastructure will overcome much of the damage we are currently doing to our coastal ecosystems through our effluents. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, science and innovation are key to the vital transformations required. It's thus laudable that UN member states, in their collective wisdom, embedded science and innovation into the theme for the UN Ocean Conference to be held in Lisbon here next year. Coupled with the UN Decade of Ocean Science, now underway, ocean science will give us the foundations on which to build the sustainable blue economy that we need for a resilient future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the ocean is acidifying at the fastest rate in the history of the planet. It'll be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for many ocean ecosystems and species to adapt to such rapid change. And the SDG 14.3 target on controlling ocean acidification will only succeed if we can control our anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions to levels that will assure us a net zero global economy by 2050. It is thus that the road to next year's UN Ocean Conference here in Lisbon will lead through the Biodiversity COP in Kunming in China in October and UNFCCC's COP in Glasgow in November. The ocean's massive contribution to required mitigation and adaptation in the face of climate change and biodiversity loss is readily at hand. But if we wish to receive those benefits, henceforth, protecting the ocean's well-being must be at the center of all those international negotiations. The Glasgow COP presents the best opportunity for the world to move the climate finance needle decisively in the direction of strengthening the ocean's contribution to climate change, mitigation, and adaptation. Moving this finance needle and bringing ocean issues to the center of UNFCCC deliberations will create much greater impetus for countries to include and operationalize ocean-related measures in their climate strategies, including building resilience for coastal ecosystems. To unleash the sustainable blue economy's promise, mobilizing finance on the scale of the trillions of dollars we have witnessed of late will be needed. To obtain the new foods that will feed us through sustainable aquaculture, the ocean-derived biomedicines that will keep us healthy, the offshore renewable energy that will provide our power, immense deployment of finance lies ahead. Prior to this momentous move, sustainable ocean planning is required, and these plans must be based on sound ocean science. The good news is, in that regard, that the decade of ocean science is now underway, and I commend the EU for the strong role it has played in bringing the decade to fruition. Knowledge of the ocean's properties and the intricacies of its ecosystems, woefully deficient in the past, together with free access to reliable ocean data for public authorities, civil society, and industry, are prerequisites for the sustainable blue economy. The second bit of good news is that the 14 heads of government, serving heads of government, of the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, one of whom is Portugal's Prime Minister Antonio Costa, have announced that all of their countries will have sustainable ocean plans in place for their EEZs by 2025, 100% of their EEZs. They've called upon their peers around the world to ensure that 100% of EEZs are covered by such science-based plans by 2030 around the world. To encapsulate where we are going on this, I would say that greatly enhanced ocean science enables comprehensive, sustainable ocean plans, leading to a massive scaling up of finance for the sustainable blue economy. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I was greatly encouraged by a communication I read last month from the EU Commission to the European Parliament and the Council entitled Transforming the EU's Blue Economy for a Sustainable Future. I was particularly impressed by this statement in the paper, and I quote, "The outdated notion that environmental protection conflicts with the economy is giving way to a realization that, especially in the maritime industry, the environment and the economy are intrinsically linked. We need to shift the focus from blue growth to a sustainable blue economy." I give that statement a big tick. I fully endorse such thinking, and I urge the implementation of policy to back it up. Indeed, such direction answers SDG 14's call for harmonization of protection and production. Its implementation will demonstrate that the European Green Deal is delivering the goods and will inspire other regions around the world to follow suit, connecting green and blue policies and extending international ocean governance. The paper makes a seminal point that will resonate around the world if the EU chooses to amplify it in these challenging times. It says that the sustainable blue economy will create tangible opportunities for new jobs and businesses. These opportunities will be created by work to mitigate the impacts on the ocean and its coasts, to build a resilient economic model based on innovation, a circular economy, and a respectful attitude to the ocean. The paper proposes that businesses that use or generate renewable resources preserve marine ecosystems, reduce pollution, and increase resilience to climate change will be incentivized, while others will need to reduce their environmental footprint. In speaking in strong support of this paper, I say again that it is time for the climate finance needle to make that exponential move in the direction of the ocean's many contributions. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude my remarks this afternoon by reaffirming that we're all connected, human to human, around the globe, with all the other creatures on land and sea, with all of creation living within the embrace of nature, not outside it, not in partnership with, within the embrace of nature. If nothing else, the COVID-19 pandemic has confirmed that fact. As the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, said in his State of the Planet address at Columbia University in New York last December, we've been at war with nature, and the time has come for us to make peace with it. As we emerge from the pandemic, faithfully implementing the blueprint of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and the Paris Climate Agreement, it is the creation of the required peace with nature that must be in the front of our minds. The survival of our kind, in fact, depends upon that peace being achieved. And on this World Ocean Day, I also reaffirm the fact that there is only one ocean, and that what is being done in the North Atlantic will ultimately have its effect in the South Pacific and vice versa. A melting Greenland ice sheet, for example, in the Northern Hemisphere has existential implications for an atoll community in the Southern Hemisphere. We're all connected on planet Earth, and the oneness of the ocean reinforces that reality. And so, what is asked of the EU for the implementation of SDG 14 holds true for the other 16 goals of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Stay true to the plan, double down on efforts, and in the name of intergenerational justice, never give up. I thank you for your attention.
We now give the floor to the Director General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, Charlina Vicheva, participating remotely from the European Commission that will address the European economic recovery and the new approach for a circular, digital, and decarbonized blue economy in the EU.
Hello? Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me now? Normally everything worked on my end. Hello? Good afternoon. Is it still without the sound? I will try again. Good afternoon. Okay. So I understand that you can hear me now. Okay. Thank you very much. So I will again pass my thanks to the Portuguese presidency and particularly to the Portuguese minister for organizing the discussion today. It is a great pleasure to join you at this important event, especially for DG Mare. And I'm really happy that we can manage this afternoon to put oceans and blue economy at the center of the discussions on sustainability and recovery. And on Commission's behalf as well, a very happy Global Ocean Day. Now I would really like the organizers to share the presentation. Yes, thank you very much. So we can go to the first slide then. I heard very well Mr. Thompson, and I'm happy that he also shared the positive thinking around the latest communication from 2 weeks ago on blue economy from the Commission. He mentioned a couple of figures, but I would like to mention another aspect of what the ocean actually represents, not only globally, but specifically for Europe. Globally, we know that the ocean represents at least 71% of the planet, the surface of the planet Earth. This is a huge opportunity, but also any challenge that is linked to this 71% is a huge challenge for the planet. I would mention 55,000 kilometers, which is the coastline put together of the EU. And because we like comparisons, it actually is as big as the coastline of Russia and the US together. So this only speaks about the potential we have for blue economy and for keeping our ocean healthy. Then I would mention something that I really like, and this is that the European Union cumulatively has the largest exclusive economic zone, and it represents huge potential for developing of sustainable blue economy. So we have to imagine ourselves, and I was very much listening to Mr. Thompson of what the EU can do. With this potential, I think that we can be even more ambitious of what we are today and contribute as much as possible to the Green Deal and to the global effort towards healthy ocean. Then the 40%. The 40% is actually the population in Europe that lives in coastal areas, which means that blue economy is actually a provider of livelihood, very important livelihood for almost half of our population. And then if we look at the figure of 1 trillion, this is the estimate of OECD of how much the EU ocean economy will generate in terms of turnover by 2030. And this is actually a duplication of what we have, almost duplication of what we have to do today. So this figure is quite impressive, but also encouraging. And if we talk about the ocean services, I will immediately mention the 80% of life forms that are kept by oceans and seas. I would repeat the figure that Mr. Thompson said, which is we have to repeat it very, very often, that CO2 emissions are actually absorbed by our oceans. And for the moment, the estimates that 1/4 of what we create as CO2 emissions by human activity is actually absorbed by our oceans. So it is one of the biggest, probably the biggest climate regulator. I will stop here with the figures, but the idea with these figures was to show the potential and the great importance oceans have for our life, livelihood, and for our economy. Next slide, please. Talking about the 2030 agenda and the development goal 14, the European Green Deal was actually the one that was trying to translate in terms of serious ambition this agenda into our day-to-day work. So this is our strategic agenda of how to ensure the transformation of our economy in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. And it has to follow each and every sector in our economy. The ocean and seas are under severe pressure due to human activities, and therefore we shouldn't allow that blue economy and blue economy activities undermines our ambition for the future. So our blue economy, the EU blue economy, should lead by example. And so this is a bit the reactive part of what we would like to achieve. So everything that goes on in terms of economy and blue economy in the oceans should become fully sustainable. On the other end, we have to look at it in a proactive manner and realize that actually the blue economy is very much part of the solution to achieve the European Green Deal objectives, and notably the objective of carbon neutrality. And I would recall the offshore renewable energy communication that was adopted at the end of last year, and which highlighted that the offshore renewable energy could, and not only could, but should generate actually at least 1/4 of the EU's electricity in 2050 if we would like to achieve the carbon neutrality. We would also like to use fully the potential of the blue economy for the green recovery of Europe. Mr. Thompson was talking about, and I'm happy for the quote he took from the communication on sustainable blue economy, of matching nicely economic and environmental endeavors. Here, I would like to underline that we not only have to match economic and economic endeavors, but also we have to make the recovery part of our green and environmental effort. We have to reconcile these two, and we can do it in a very nice and smart way. I would like to highlight as well that many activities take place at sea. And all sectors that are there present at sea, they have to make an effort towards the same objectives. We need a coherent approach across the different maritime actors and sectors. We need also a vision at EU level, bearing in mind that coordination among member states is needed desperately to protect our oceans and seas while respecting as well sea basin specificities. That is why actually the European Commission adopted the communication last month that set the new approach for sustainable blue economy. Please, the next slide. Can we? Yes. On this slide, you actually see all the details related to the adoption of this new document. It was adopted on the 17th of May, and it identifies the concrete desirable transformations in the different sectors of the blue economy that could guide the public and private initiatives towards achieving the Green Deal. The communication is not an extensive and exhaustive action plan, but it sets the directions in which the Commission proposes to intensify the efforts and mobilize all the policies and instruments available. It complements many other initiatives, and I mentioned one of them, like the communication on offshore energy. Or, for example, the one on smart mobility. So we recently had smart mobility strategy adoption, or zero pollution action plan, or the strategy for plastic. So it puts together and makes a coherent view of how all these can meet with regard to blue economy ambition. Please, can we go to the next slide? This slide actually shows what we consider as blue economy in the EU. And we define as blue economy everything, all the economic activities that relate to oceans, not only the ones that are offshore, but also the ones that are present in our coastal areas and are linked to our seas and oceans. The blue economy covers a very wide range of interlinked sectors, which are both traditional, but we have a beautiful set of emerging activities which we can set the very start by design on a sustainable path. According to the last Blue Economy report, the established blue economy sectors generate for the moment more than 4.5 million direct jobs. And I already mentioned that the turnover is around 600 billion, which is expected to grow to 1 trillion in the next decade. Can we go to the next slide? And as always, on our end, sustainability always has three different angles. The one related to preserving marine natural capital is the environmental aspect. And as the Commissioner says, when it comes to the seas and oceans, the environment is the economy. So the environment and the economy has always been for us a good match that we have to try and use its full potential. The second one is profitability and economic sustainability. For this, we have to invest in innovation. Actually, if we want to achieve the environmental sustainability, innovation is also the game changer. The blue economy should be resilient to shocks and should not depend on public subsidies or tax exemptions. We have to make it viable from all points of view. And thirdly, of course, it is a huge potential to produce not just income, but a lot of jobs, and at the same time produce a healthy food, medicines, and quality of life. Let's go to the next slide now. This slide actually represents our thinking along the value chains concept. So blue economy, if it has to be successful in all its aspects, it needs to have and to ensure integrated and holistic approach across value chains and along the priorities of the European Green Deal. And we have identified in this communication 4 such pillars, such priorities. The first one is decarbonization. The second one is biodiversity and climate adaptation, which is linked to achieving coastal resilience. Another one is circular economy. And very importantly, the fourth one, but not the least one, responsible food production. I was requested by the presidency to concentrate on the 2 pillars related to decarbonization and circularity. So let's start with decarbonization. Let's go to the next slide. Marine renewable energy. The EU is a leading a partner in the development of not only the traditional type of energy from the sea, which is offshore energy, but also it is a leading partner on wave and tidal energy, which are the emerging, not yet fully commercialized ways of producing energy from the sea. And also, let's recall again, we have the largest maritime space. So this gives us a unique opportunity to be a global leader in producing energy from the sea. The EU Offshore Renewable Energy Strategy, which, as I've said, was adopted in November last year, set a very ambitious plan to boost investment and facilitate the development of offshore renewables in the EU. We would like to boost the investment and to create almost 800 billion on top of what is being invested today between now and 2050. The offshore energy sector already employs more people than fisheries. Between 2017 and 18, staff has increased by 15%, for example. we can aim at tripling this result by 2030. Next slide, please. When we talk about decarbonization, we inevitably think of how we can decarbonize maritime transport. Maritime transport generates comparatively fewer emissions vis-a-vis the transport by road and air, but we have a huge potential there because 80% of goods are carried out by sea. And maritime transport generates both carbon and other polluting emissions. And it is due to the very heavy reliance on fossil fuels. So our objective there is the Green Deal calls for 90% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from all modes of transport. And this includes also maritime transport. The 2020 Communication on Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy aims at bringing the first zero emission vessel to the market by 2030. This is not only important for transport, but also for fisheries, because if we have such a vessel for transport, we can have it also for fisheries. For this, however, we would need really to urgently invest in greener technologies. We have to invest in innovation and greening at the same time. And it is extremely important that public authorities set the scene because the public authorities can incentivize, even if we don't provide the full investment, because as I've said, we need a viable blue economy. We have to incentivize, and we have a number of means to incentivize and pave the road towards green shipping. And I can mention a couple of such incentives. For example, the announced revision of the Energy Taxation Directive. We will also revise the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive, and we will extend the EU emission trading system to maritime transport as well. I would also like to highlight that we have to concentrate our efforts on ports. This will have really important implications on the role of the ports as energy and circularity hubs for the future. So we have to take the challenge and the potential at the same time. Next slide, please. Talking about circularity, I have to throw another figure on the table. Every year, around 27,000 tons of macroplastic enter European seas. Most of it comes from land, but also some of it from blue economy. And here we have a lot that we can do. The Commission will revise the ship recycling regulation by 2023 to tackle circularity. And our new European Fisheries, Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, MFAF, will support collection, reuse, and recyclability of fishing gear. Industry shall invest in these endeavors and in various composite materials where plastics will not be present. Next slide, please. Digitalization. We know that von der Leyen's Commission has the twin transition, green and digital transition, on the top of the European agenda. It brings also very high opportunities for the blue economy, and I will mention only some of them. Take artificial intelligence. Through artificial intelligence, we can make a revolution in data management. We can make it much more efficient. We can improve forecasting and ocean knowledge. Digitalization will also increase traceability, and this is one of the high ambitions that we have to ensure traceability in seafood products. Digitalization can increase data sharing and could facilitate control, not only making it less burdensome, but also it can make it much more effective. Automation in shipping can be achieved also through digitalization, and e-administration can reduce administrative burden. Of course, we have challenges. We have to tackle them in parallel in using the potential. And here I would mention uh, the risk of having too high dependence on the new technologies. Cybersecurity is a huge challenge and concern. The cost is also something that we have to keep in mind. It may require an EU coordinated approach on investments in order to make it happen. And we need to secure exchange of information among maritime authorities and among member states. So this is something that is on top of digitalization. Next slide, please. Transitioning to sustainable blue economy is actually an industrial revolution. We will need to mobilize all our policies and all our tools. And I would, you see the quite a busy slide on everything that we can mobilize, but I would like to highlight specifically two aspects. We will require notably investing in research and innovation. And I'm extremely happy that Horizon Europe, which is the biggest ever investment program in innovation and research globally, I'm really happy that this program, 7-year program, will play a key role for, on one hand, for climate neutral partnerships, but also specifically for blue economy by having it embedded in one of our clusters, but also with one of the new tools established by this program, the candidate mission on oceans. The second aspect that I would like to highlight is the needed investment in skills. The transition of blue economy to sustainability is already giving rise to job vacancies. Up to 30% of offshore renewable energy companies complain either that the skills they need are not available or that the existing skills are not sufficient. So shortages are there. The new European skills agenda will help businesses and individuals to adapt not only to digitalized processes, but also to the new technologies through upskilling and reskilling in blue economy. Skills partnerships should bring together the private sector and the training institutes. Next slide, please. This is one of my last slides, but it is absolutely crucial, and actually it always collects most of the questions from wherever we talk about blue economy. Funding. How to fund the transition. You see on the slide that we have achieved the EU taxonomy with regard to sustainable investment. But if we consider the EU-specific tools related to funding of blue economy and possibilities for that, I would start with the Recovery and Resilience Facility. It is a key pillar of the new instrument. It is a completely unprecedented instrument, the Next Generation EU. It is unprecedented by way of being operationalized and by the huge amount of investment it engages. 672.5 billion of loans and grants will be available for the crucial first years of recovery up until 2023. 37% of this budget should be allocated to green transitions. And here is the opportunity. The national recovery and resilience plans, in order to use this facility, are being built. We have already a number of these plans submitted, and many of these also include sizable blue economy investments that was made in a very nice partnership between the Commission and the member states, realizing the potential that needs to be tapped. I would also mention the cohesion funding. It is crucial to use fully, for example, the European Regional Development Fund. It can be a huge source to support the transition to sustainable blue economy. And I will also mention the new European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund, which has a facility. I'm sure that the converted ones know about it. This is the Invest EU Fund, which aims to mobilize more than 372 billion of public and private investment through an EU budget guarantee. So this is the Invest EU Fund, and the Blue Invest should help make it happen on the blue economy side. Next slide, please. This slide is really concentrated on the Blue Invest and the platform that we continue to support. The Blue Invest is aiming at helping the SMEs and startups develop their business in blue economy. We have a target there to support at least 200 SMEs by coaching. For the moment, we have 150 SMEs and startups. So we are very close to achieving this target by the end of the year. Let me remind you that we are running the platform, which ensures matchmaking between investors and companies through events, pitching and animation of online community. We also improve investor readiness. We help the implementation of EU support on the Blue Invest, and we support regional or national efforts to bring new products and services of blue economy to the market. Next slide, please. Here you have some data that show the scale of Blue Invest. Building on Blue Invest Fund experience in 2020, the EIF has launched Portugal Blue in partnership with Banco Portuguese, the Fomento, the Portuguese NPI. Portugal Blue is a 50 million equity partnership between the EIF and NPI, and it provides financial support to Portuguese startups. So this is really the local expression of our Blue Invest effort. And my last slide is about breaking silos and about joining forces. Ensuring the transition of sustainable blue economy is also about changing the governance. And transitioning to a sustainable blue economy is about managing space better. We need to find space for new activities. And whenever we do use space, we need to make the most out of it. And of course, preserve biodiversity and nature at the same time. In complement to the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive, we will organize a Blue Forum for all users of our areas. This will resolve conflicts, we hope, between fishing and renewables, for example, and develop synergies. While we should agree on common objectives, we have also to take clearly into account sea basin specificities. We have to coordinate across borders. This is essential in order to achieve the common objectives. And for this, we have a number of platforms. Sea basin strategies, macro-regional strategies are offering such a useful framework. And at the end, I would like to highlight the huge importance of the citizens' energy. We need to engage with citizens. We need to inform them, and especially the young people and young generation. we highly value the contact with young people because they highly value the health of seas and oceans. For this, I would like to end up my presentation by encouraging to make the best of the ocean mission. I know that there will be a presentation of an ocean mission later today. And I would like to bring again the efforts under the EU for Ocean Coalition. And we need to encourage and to further facilitate the network of schools to bring the oceans into the classrooms. Thank you very much again to the Portuguese Presidency and for your attention.
Thank you so much for your participation. Welcome to the panel's discussions. On each panel, a recognized keynote speaker will address on the topics of ocean health, knowledge and ocean awareness, prosperity, and fair and equitable socio-economic conditions. Finally, a project pitch will emphasize how innovation, knowledge, and information are instrumental to conciliate a sustainable blue economy in the EU. The 4 panels will be moderated by Carla Tomás. Carla Tomás is a journalist from Expresso newspaper and will introduce keynote speakers and the speakers from project pitches. We will now start the first of 4 thematic panels, giving the floor to the moderator and speakers of panel 1, dedicated to the theme, A Healthy Ocean to Support Life.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Today we are here to speak about a blue agenda for the Green Deal. So, as the Ambassador Thompson said, without an healthy ocean, we cannot have an healthy planet. So we have 4 panels with 4 interesting speakers. And we are going to start with Gesine Meissner. It's the representative of the Mission Board Healthy Oceans, Seas, Coastal and Inland Waters. And the first panel is about a healthy ocean to support life. I give you the floor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In our ocean conference in Malta, 2017, I always remember that, Queen Noor from Jordania, she said, healthy oceans are crucial for peace on Earth. And I think she's absolutely right, and that's why healthy oceans are so much in the middle of interest for everybody and should be in the interest of everybody. And that's why I think a Green Deal, what we're discussing right now in Europe, is not possible without a Blue Deal. It was already mentioned before with Shalina, but that is something we have to take in mind. So I'm now going to talk about mission Starfish, as it's called right now, Mission Healthy Ocean, Seas, and Coastal and Inland Waters. That's what we started with. We changed the title. I will later on tell you why. And actually, yeah, it's very important that we have this mission, I think. And I can announce there will be some slight overlaps with what Shalina said. Of course, she said something from DG Mare. I now represent the angle of DG RTD, so from the science and research angle. But if something is very important, it's better to tell it double than not to tell it at all. So please, the next title, next slide. It will be very quick. Yeah, Mission Starfish 2030, it's a title right now, Restore Our Ocean and Waters. It's mainly that we changed the title because this is more emotional and it gives really a symbol what people can feel. I will tell you more about that later. Next slide, please. Because you ask yourself maybe, what are missions? Why do we have missions? Well, actually, missions shall be like the moonshot. That was Commissioner Moedas said when he created those missions. They say we shall be inspiring, catchy, and getting the interest of the society. And by the way, they shall have solutions to greatest challenges facing our world. So like healthy oceans, or the 4 others were climate change, smart cities, healthy soil and food, and cancer. That were the missions, and they shall be an integral part of the Horizon Europe framework for 2021 starting. And each mission has a mission board, assembly, and a secretariat, and they shall create measurable targets for solutions and a bottom-up movement. With a bottom-up movement, we shall achieve all this. So it means we have to inform and motivate citizens to support and participate in this mission. Next slide, please. This is the mission board. I can just very short show you our president is Pascal Lamy, the former commissioner and the former general secretary of WTO. And I can point out Thiago Peter Icunta on the left side. He is a Portuguese member of this mission. So not all the member states of European Union are represented, but Portugal is in it. Next slide, please. And what we did, we said it's not only about oceans, it's about the whole water cycle. The whole water cycle and the systemic nature of the challenges ocean and waters face. So we had a look from source to sea, from glaciers to beaches, including landlocked countries as well, and from sea to consumers. And that is something really we always had to take in mind. Next slide, please. That's something you know, that now we come first to the facts. It's Peter Thompson, he pointed out what really is the case with the ocean. The ocean and waters are under threat with unsustainable human footprint. You all know about that, and I don't have to repeat it. With the climate change, we'll come to that later on a little bit more in details. With a lack of understanding and connection, that is very important in my eyes to really have a change, have a not business as usual, but another approach. And with inadequate governance. All those are challenges to healthy ocean and waters. Next slide, please. This is now climate change. I think I can go through it quite quick as well, because that's what you knew. It's the sea level rise that really worries us. Accelerated glacier melting, that of course has an effect to everything, what's going on in the oceans and in the waters. Extreme weather events, we all can feel that. Acidification, Peter Thompson pointed out, it's worse than expected, it's quicker than expected. We have cascade effects on marine ecosystems, changes to biology and chemistry of freshwater ecosystems, and challenges to freshwater management and supply. And this, and the important role of oceans and seas to fight climate change, for example, as well, by binding the heat, binding CO2, it's unknown to a biggest part of the society, and that's what we want to change as well. Next slide, please. Yes, lack of understanding and connection and inadequate governance that really kept us busy for a long time. Actually, ocean is not a constituency. Ocean doesn't have voters, and at least not in Europe. Ocean doesn't have, maybe has voters in the Fijis or in the Pacific Islands, not here. So it means it can happen that the ocean is out of sight, out of mind, and taken for granted. It's just there. Nobody cares about it. It's something we have to change. We have a political and financial underinvestment for ocean. If I just think that, for example, for marine research in Germany is less than 1% of the research budget, it's ridiculous. Although we have very good researchers in Germany, nevertheless we don't have enough money. We have gaps in measurement and prediction and management, that we have to change, and we have a fragmentation of instruments and institutions regarding the governance. So the basis for us was knowing all this to find solutions and real targets. Next slide, please. So that means we now have the mission Starfish 2030, restore our ocean and waters. We started in the mission board with the dreaming phase. It was fantastic. Everybody could say, what if you just would be almighty? What would you change in order to have the ocean the middle of interest for everybody? What would you do if you could really change everything today? And well, then we had to come back to reality and find targets. And so that we first said, we have to change the title. We have to do it emotional, nice, and with a fitting symbol. That's why we created the mission Starfish. The shape of the starfish has 5 arms or legs. I don't know what is it. Does a starfish have arms or legs? Not important. 5 things. And so we said we are going for exactly 5 messages we want to fulfill, 5 goals. Filling the knowledge and emotional gap is the first. Second, regeneration marine and freshwater ecosystems. Third, zero pollution. fourth, decarbonizing our ocean, seas, and waters, and fifth, revamping governance. In more details, the several games we have. The next slide, please. Filling the knowledge and emotional gap. Well, if I just think about Germany, Otto von Bismarck once said, the Germans are sitting with the back to the sea, looking to Italy and to the mountains. That's exactly the way it is. And talking today with somebody from Portugal, they said, even in Portugal, it's sometimes the case. And that, of course, we have to change the direction of the view of people in order really to have the ocean more in the center of everything. And that means we want to make each European a citizen of our ocean and waters. How can we do that? By a pan-European blue education program, starting with the kindergarten and offering something for all ages. We are looking for a blue regeneration voluntary course and ambassadors for citizen science with larger public engagement. Not too easy to arrange that. For a new blue workforce, that's what already was mentioned by Blue Skills, by Charlina. And we want an active cooperation and co-ownership by all public authorities. And we have always to keep in mind, we have to raise awareness and to create emotions in order to have people's hearts and then people's minds and maybe people's actions. The marine and freshwater observation is streamlined and accessible to all via a digital twin of the ocean and all waters. That's what we want to have. We already started to create it, a digital twin of the ocean. And actually my vision is to have something like a platform, maybe called Octopus or Starfish, Message from the Sea, where the marine research data is presented in an understandable format and accessible to everybody, for kids and everybody to have exchange of views. That would be perfect, but we don't have it yet. We want to have a European strategy for marine science and streamlining its existing data, models, and services. So, next slide, please. What do we want regarding regenerating marine and water ecosystems? Peter Thompson, you might be happy now. We want 30% of EU waters are highly to fully protected until 2030, exactly what you pointed out. And we hope that we can achieve that by the expansion of the MPAs, and not only that, but by a definition of marine protected area and by an effective management plans for that. I think it's crucial because sometimes we have MPAs, but we have no management plan, and so it's useless. And we want a coherent network of MPAs with local stakeholders. I think that's very important as well. We don't have it. Besides, we want an active regeneration of 20% of degraded habitats by EU Blue Parks program, by pilot Blue Recovery Nursery, by protection of biodiversity hotspots, and a large-scale regeneration project for every member state. Even the landlocked member states can do something for the water system, not really for the ocean. Thinking about Austria, but they have melting glaciers, they have rivers and so on. They can, of course, do something as well. And we want to end overfishing with a low-impact fishing strategy, with equipping the fishing vessels with geo-positioning systems, reduce incidental catches, and to phase out the destructive fishing practices we have still right now. What do we want to do regarding zero pollution? It's already there. We want a zero plastic litter generation. Actually, if we are frank, we must say we are already the plastic footprint generation, and we will have the plastic age if we close our eyes one day, but we hope that it will be different with the future generation. We want a zero plastic pollution pilot in the Mediterranean Sea to start with, a ban of all single-use plastics, and intentionally added microplastics. We do have already in place an EU single-use plastic directive that forbids from this year onwards to use several single-use plastic or to sell it. And we want reusability and recycling of all plastics in the EU. There is a lot still to be done. For example, in Germany, we separate all the waste. I think you in Portugal do it as well, and we feel proud that we are the good ones, so to say. But out of the plastic, only 30%, if it's the maximum, is recycled, only 6% is reused. There is much more possibility to go for. Yeah, we want eutrophication of European seas and waters to be halted by a reduction of loss of nutrients into the environment, We want reduction of use and risk of pesticides and advanced treatment of urban wastewaters, although as well this belongs to the whole water cycle. We want zero spill by introducing an EU green shipping label. We don't have it yet. Reducing waste and container loss from shipping. Reduce runoff of micropollutants and halt dumping of red muds and contaminated sediments. And, that is something new as well, we want underwater noise to be regulated and reduced. We want to enact a regulation of underwater noise, reduce underwater acoustic emissions, and create noise-free zones. We don't have it yet, and for a long time, noise as pollutant was counted if it was environmental policy on land, but never on sea or in the ocean. That's what we want to change as well. Next slide, please. Number 4, the arm or leg of the starfish number 4. We want to decarbonize our ocean and seas. We want a climate-neutral waterborne transport, support the energy transition through renewable, low-impact ocean energy. Charlina already mentioned the potential of wave and tidal energy, maybe biomass from the sea as well, in combination with wind and solar. And we need more smart grids. That's what I just say. We didn't talk about it in the mission, but it's really necessary. If we cannot bring the energy from the sea to the producers, it's not worthwhile. Besides, of course, we are longing for a zero-carbon aquaculture, and maybe by including algae instead of fish for feeding, it would be more sustainable as well. We want a thriving blue biotech and a climate-neutral blue tourism. I think if we have a good tourism and information of tourists, it could be a big step forward already to have the ocean in mind of people. And I add something that's not in this picture here, using capacity of ocean to bind CO2 by, for example, planting seaweeds here or overseas mangroves, and help that come true. And now the last point, the 5th point, next slide please. We want to revamp governance. We want an integrated and participatory EU system of ocean and water governance. The idea was to create a European Ocean and Water Agency. As I'm in Lisbon, I know here's the EMSA. We thought it could be that we enlarge the power of the EMSA. We don't have maybe to create a new agency, but it must be something more in the mind of people with the word ocean in the name. And we want a European Blue Citizens Forum, an integrated ocean and water plan for Europe, and a regular ocean and water summit. And what do we do with the EU leadership for effective global ocean governance, something that is really maybe of interest for Peter Thompson as well from his introductory remarks. We want an UN agreement on areas beyond national jurisdiction by, for example, having MSP as a global tool for such areas. We want an international ban on activities causing seabed habitat loss. EU fishing should be eradicated. That's what we all for sure agree. We want international standards for ports, harbors, and shipping. For example, like Port Reception Facility Directive, what we had in Europe, to be enlarged globally for all the ports as something they have to stick to. We want an UN agreement on protection of major rivers, ocean governance agreements with strategic partners. I think integrated ocean governance is an important approach from the European Union with integrated maritime policy as a basis. We can achieve a lot with that. And we want circular economy agreements with Mediterranean riparian countries to ban and recycle plastic. Next slide, please. Almost the last one. Yes. All this we want to do together with enthusiastic citizen and stakeholder engagement and co-creation across Europe. And you can see all those dark blue countries did already have movements with citizen engagement, so all the member states will be included. It's ongoing, but we still have to do a lot in order to motivate Europeans to be protectors of the sea. And now I have my last slide. Mission Starfish 2030, restore our ocean and waters and create healthy waters. The time to act is really now. Everybody can join us to do something, and I think the parallelity of Mission Starfish 2030 and the UN decade, Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, is a big chance. I always say we have the decade where we can show that ocean is important and really put it in the heart of people. And that's why, for example, we have a story about this little boy. The story says, a little boy, after a storm, the beach is covered with starfishes. A little boy is going there and picking them up, one after the other, and throwing them back to the sea. An old man comes along and says, "Hey boy, by far too many for you. You would not make any difference." And the little boy takes another starfish, puts it back in the sea, and says, "For this one, I made a difference." And that is what we have to tell people, young people, older people. Everybody can make a difference. And I always say, what you love, you will protect. And so let's make everybody love our oceans and seas. Yes, let's stay in touch, last slide, and do something all together, then we will achieve healthy oceans. Thank you.
Gesine, I think that, as you said, if the octopus, the fish, the dolphins, the whales could vote, maybe our oceans would be healthier than they are, don't you think?
I'm absolutely sure about that. That's what I really said as a former politician. I always say, if we would have voters, fishes or dolphins, or somebody who is going to vote for them, it would be different, our politics.
You spoke about education. It's also very important, because what we do on Earth, it's what the consequences go to the oceans, the pollution, the acidification, and everything. But how is it possible to give the perception to everyone that protecting the ocean and maintaining prosperity in land is achievable, and how can we do it?
I think really we have to tell people something about their daily life. For example, if you say what was mentioned, half of the oxygen you need for breathing is coming from the ocean, so without ocean you could not survive. Or maybe the whole water system really is dependent on the health of ocean. And several other things, everything we want to buy in the supermarket is coming through the ocean, and maybe not in a sustainable way. So you have to try to keep people's interest. Easiest way is with kids. If you, my elder granddaughter, like she's 5 years old, she always says, "Omi, that's great. You do something for the penguins and the turtles." And so that's something she likes, and that is a way to go for. So you always have to take in mind what kind of person is in front of me, and what is the way to raise attention and to keep the emotion.
With these pandemics, made a little bit an halt on all these important agenda of climate action and the oceans defense. What do you think will be the aftermath of this pandemic, and how do you think it can be addressed?
Two things. First of all, the recovery package from the EU contains several proposals that we made in our mission board and took it on board, and I hope it will come true and will be financed. That's one thing. Besides, for example, even in the German newspaper in North Germany, it was written that through the pandemic and the breaking down of several activities, the Venice was in a better condition, or the waters in Venice were in a better condition. And that is something that shows people, if we don't do some things, it is better for the ocean. Of course, we want the economy to recover, but we can maybe do it differently. And that is maybe a good message of the pandemic.
Okay, thank you very much. I think now I'm going to give the floor to Isabel Souza Pinto from the Coastal Biodiversity Lab, and please have the floor.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to thank the organizers to giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit about our work to apply nature-based solutions to marine and coastal and transitional waters for climate mitigation, So as we all know, healthy ecosystems are thriving with life, biodiversity, a lot of diversity, and also they provide us many ecosystem services. But as we also already heard, these ecosystems are being degraded, and so is biodiversity disappearing, and so are these ecosystems disappearing. And this is because of climate change and also other pressures that come from our activities. So to help safeguard biodiversity and our natural capital, we came up with, we are testing 3 kinds of nature-based solutions. First one is effective restoration of habitat-forming species. So habitat-forming species like kelps and seagrass beds and mangroves, and also shellfish and coral reefs. So they are a natural coastal protection, and they help us actually in adaptation to risks reducing coming from climate change, like storms and floods and so on. They also support biodiversity, giving shelter and nursery for many species, including those that are important for fisheries. They also improve seawater quality. They fight locally, for instance, acidification. They also sustain, they improve water quality for sustaining tourism and cultural activities. Also, this expansion of marine vegetated habitats help mitigate climate change by developing really carbon sinks like we do on land with afforestation. So our restoration strategies that we are testing is really trying to control some pressures as eutrophication, trawling, harvest, and so on, but also seeding and planting habitat-forming species in an active way. Our second nature-based solution kind of activities takes care of effective conservation of species and habitats. We will, as you know, with this, our new biodiversity strategy, the aim is to preserve 30% of our marine waters and 10% with strict protection. And so we need to increase the area that is under protection, actually. So for that, we are identifying climate refugia to set marine protected areas in areas that really increase the resilience of our network of marine protected areas as part also of the climate adaptation planning. Of course, we will work also on the plans, the management plans for these areas, and we also are working on plans to protect specific species, mostly migratory charismatic megafauna. Our third nature-based solution has to do with sustainably harvesting. And we will work on ecosystem-based management, both for fisheries, but also for aquaculture. And we focus on the cultivation of low-trophic species, especially seaweeds and shellfish, so we can get more biomass from the marine ecosystems in a sustainable way. We do that by applying these all over Europe in 40 different regions, also in Mid and South America. And we want to respond to several questions like we want to deliver projections for future climate change hotspots, and of course he has to do that in some places. This cannot be done just in a conceptual way. We would like to perform economic analysis of different nature-based solutions, conduct novel socio-ecological vulnerability assessments, and always co-create our research activities with decision and policy makers. So we have a lot of activities planned with a number of stakeholders, including policy makers from local to international level. And as an example, for instance, we want to regionalize our scenario narratives for nature-based solutions. We'll do that with stakeholders. We want to refine our specific nature-based solution activities from local to international. And one thing that is novel from this project, we have actually some funds to do novel research that is requested by policymakers or other stakeholders that engage with our project. So we thank you for listening, and we look forward to hear from you. This is our site, And we would like to work together for also, of course, in the framework of the UN Decade for Ocean Sciences and also for the mission. Thank you very much.
As we are, we are late in the schedule, thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you very much, Gesine, for interventions. And now we can go to the second panel, please. And I invite to the floor António Costa Silva, the Prime Minister Advisor for Strategic Vision for Portugal 2030, whose strategic vision for the economic recovery plan. Hello. Now we cannot shake hands.
Cannot.
Please. Okay. And I don't know if the next the project pitch, please. So to the floor. Wanda Brotas from Port Vims, Portugal, Twinning for Innovation and Excellence in Marine Science and Earth Observation, who also at the end of this panel will present our project. And now I will give you the floor. Okay. So I don't know if you prefer to sit or to go to the pulpit? Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank very much the invitation of Minister Ricardo Serrão Santos to share with you some ideas regarding the ocean knowledge and awareness and the importance of the ocean in Portugal strategy. So I will try to address 2 points. First of all, the post-COVID world and how the future might evolve. The second one is the role of ocean in the Portugal recovery plan. If we look to the COVID crisis and the main impacts, of course the COVID crisis changed a lot the challenges in terms of the health. It widened the scope of the health challenges. It also placed a very astonishing criteria to define what is safety today when the safety of human species is at stake. And of course, the changes in terms of technology, digitalization. And we tend to look to the main points, how we are addressing risks. We are failing completely to anticipate and manage the risks. We are failing in terms of new models of governance, especially at the global scale. And of course, we have a huge issues regarding our economic and development model. If we don't change our model, that is relies in the exponential consumption of resources, the degradation of the environment, and the creation of inequalities in our societies and among societies, we will not solve these issues. And the main message that is behind that is that we are destroying biodiversity. So the landscape, the global landscape regarding the diseases and the epidemiology is changing very, very fast. And why? Elizabeth Colbert, in his master book, The Extinction, the sixth extinction of species, she addresses these issues and she demonstrates very clear. In the last decades, we destroyed 1/3 of the coral reefs at the Earth. We destroyed 1/3 of sharks and the stingrays. We destroyed 1/3 of all the bivalve mollusks in waters. We destroyed 1/4 of all the mammals, reptiles, and birds. So please pay attention. If we are destroying biodiversity at this scale, all the obstacles, all the hurdles that avoid the diseases will disappear. And the ocean is crucial to be tackled on this context. And why? Because the ocean is an amazing source of biodiversity, is a regulator of the climatic system of the Earth, is a regulator of the hydrological cycle of the Earth, and is a regulator of the stability of the coastal areas of the planet. And I am not sure, I fear, that we return to the pre-COVID framework without learning these huge lessons. The next point regards for where we are going in this century. And here you have the intersection of all the problems regarding geopolitics and economy, the problems regarding the new threats, including the pandemic, the disease, the terrorism and piracy and others, and the tension, the control of the resources. And I am not stressing only the minerals, the strategic minerals which are crucial for the electric vehicles or for the energy transition. The energy which is crucial, we will consume more and more energy if the Internet of Things is there with the communication among machines. But attention to the food and to the water. And what happens if we look to the water? We have today in the world 1.1 billion people that has scarce access to water resources, less than 2,000 cubic meters per year per inhabitant, the minimum threshold fixed by the United Nations. So this involves more than 40 countries. And this is why the ocean is also crucial. And we cannot solve the water scarcity if we degrade the quality of the waters in the ocean. And this is happening at an astonishing scale. The next point regards the coupling with the ocean placed in the center of the public policies and the public perception. And I am not sure that today the oceans are completely perceived as a key tool, a key asset to solve our challenges. But combine that, what is happening in terms of the transformation in the physical world with autonomous vehicles, with the robotic revolution, and in terms of the digital world, not only with the artificial intelligence, learning machines, but also the sensors. The sensors are changing everything, and the sensorization of the ocean is one of the most important points for the future, because we don't understand the oceans. We understand at least 5%, not much, and we cannot treat the oceans in a blind way, is what we are doing in a predatory wave regarding the oceans. And this should be combined with the biology. Biology and the crossing of biology with computation will provide huge solutions for the problems we are facing in this center. First of all, with the bioeconomy, with the blue economy based on biological materials that can replace the plastics and the chemical fertilizers. And don't be mistaken, each year we drop in the ocean, and in a increasing trend, at least between 8 to 10 million tons of plastics. We speak a lot, we do very little, and too late. The next point is how the future will evolve. And I always call this fantastic statement by the German philosopher Kant. More than 200 years ago, he said, the world is ruled by passion, by irrationality, and by periodic evils. And this is exactly what we have in the global geopolitical system, with the lack of a global model of governance of our planet. And so, this is quite dangerous. And of course, the human species is quite ingenious, quite creative, and I strongly believe that we are able to produce the responses, as I will try to demonstrate in the second part. And these responses come on the technology, on the world energy metrics, on the transportation system, on the robotic revolution, but attention to the geopolitics. This is the weakest link in this whole global thinking. And regarding the European Union, I appreciate a lot what the European Union is doing, but we need much more efforts regarding the oceans from the European Union. In the last 3 decades, in the North Pole, we lost 2 million square kilometers of ice. Attention, ice is a stabilizer of the climatic system of the Earth. If we lose the ice, they can reflect at least 30% of the energy coming from the sun. If the ice disappears, all the Atlantic North will change, and we can face a nightmare in the next 12 to 15 years if we don't do nothing. The next point regards the second part. What is the role of the oceans in the Portuguese plan for recovery and resilience? First of all, this crisis hit Portugal in a very deep way. In 2020, we lost 7.6% of our GDP. Is one of the strongest drops that we had in the history of our country. But don't be mistaken, this is the top of the iceberg. If we go down in the iceberg, we are sitting in this environmental and climatic crisis, which is very, very deep. And of course, all the constraints that we have in the country were becoming visible with this crisis. First of all, we have a very small internal market, we have a huge debt, we have a huge dependence of other economies, we have a low level of investment, and all that will be in the center of our recovery. Ocean, and especially our economic exclusive zone, should provide a pathway for the future. And we can see how the ocean can play a huge role in Portugal recovery and resilience plan. First of all, the ocean can be a platform for knowledge and awareness, and this is changing. If we place sensors in the ocean, we can get information about pressure, temperature, acidification, CO2 content, volume of plastics, volume of biological organisms, and this can change everything. So the ocean digitalization that is part of our program and the building of twin digitals of the oceans and of the ecosystems is a way that can provide solutions for the future. And the ocean can be a driver for the economy. The Portuguese waters, we have temperatures that are very prone to develop algae production, to develop the biomaterials that can replace plastics, can replace chemical fertilizers. The ocean as a climatic stabilizer, and attention, the ocean as a public good. We don't have this perception, and we just throw all the waste to the ocean. We have a predatory relationship with the ocean. If we don't change that, the future will be much more difficult. Looking to Portugal, Portugal is maybe one of the best connected countries in the world. And if we look to this map, in terms of the maritime routes, it is in the center of the Atlantic Ocean, and it could be a way to develop all these relationships in the future. 90% of the world trade is through the oceans, and the GDP growth, 40% is related with the flow of goods and services and other materials. So when we look to the strategy of the country, it's just to change our mindset in Portugal. If we link the ports and all the coastal area with Madeira and Azores, we have a sort of archipelagic country. And we think, if we think in this country as an archipelagic country, everything can be changed. Why? Because we are building, and the plan of resilience will contribute to that, to transform all these infrastructures that we have in the ports of Sines, of Leixões, in Madeira and Azores ports, as the basic infrastructure to promote the blue economy, to promote biotechnology, to promote the startups, to have the digitalization, and even the revolution in terms of energy. In Sines, our deep water port, we will place a hub in terms of hydrogen, but green hydrogen, hydrogen that is fabricated, produced through the electrolysis of water using renewable energy. And this can be the solution for the maritime fuel in the future, because hydrogen is the most abundant gas in the universe, produced through the electrolysis of the water with renewable energy, is the most clean fuel that we can afford. And pay attention, we don't have electric solutions for the ships, not for the planes, and maybe the fuel cells can provide a huge solution for the future. But this is at the top of the ocean. If we go down in the ocean, and this is happening today in Portugal, just few days ago it was launched, the Equiano cable, submarine cable by Google, connecting Sines, the port of Sines, to Cape Town, is 11,000 kilometers pathway along the ocean. And attention, this cable will have 11 ramifications for the African countries. And it is proven that the submarine cables, the flow of information, can have a strong impact in terms of commerce, in terms of trade, in terms of attracting the investment, and in terms of innovation. And in the other side, the cable that links Sines to Fortaleza in Brazil is already in operation. And we have to understand that the data is the key commodity of the economy of this century. It's in the center of the international trade system. If we compare with the economic crisis in 2008, after 2008, the international trade just plateaued as a plateau that is stabilized, but the increase in cross-border flow of data increased 112 times. So the data is in the center of the economic system. It will provide a new idea for innovation, for the success of the corporation, and for changing the current landscape. And I think we have to combine that in our plan as well. In terms of Europe, there is the interlink mechanism to connect 88 European cities, 90 ports, 82 airports, and Portugal is part of this process. So we have to work in these two dimensions, increase our connection with Spain and with continental Europe, and at the same time explore our relationship with the ocean. And the possible futures for the country here, first of all, we are at the crossroads of 3 continents in a very fantastic geographical location. We are connected globally, and we have to increase all these connections, not only in terms of energy, trade, data, but everything that can have an impact in terms of the economy, is to work out the potential of our economic exclusive zone, link these to the exploration of the continental area with the economy, especially in the interior, and not forgetting that Portugal can act as a technological platform. We are a country of 10 million people. Most of the multinationals could test their technologies in a small market before going abroad. And this is related with one of the most important projects that we have today, the Argo project. They just place sensors in the top of the ocean. These sensors go down till 2,000 meters and come back in cycles of 10 days. They provide all the information that we need in terms of pressure, temperature, acidification, oxygen, plastics, biological organisms that we have in the ocean. What is the first great discovery of this project? In the last 3 decades, the concentration of energy in the 3 meters top layer of the ocean is 1 billion times more than the energy deflagrated in the atomic bombs of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So we have a thermal bomb on the top of the ocean. And the release of this energy for the atmosphere under mechanisms that we don't understand today, the scientists don't understand yet, but this release of energy creates the extreme climatic events, the typhoons, the storms, the floods. So the discovery of this process is an information that is valued billions of dollars. And this is why I defend that we have to create a great University of the Atlantic based in Azores and Madeira. Azores is one of the best places in the planet to study the interaction between the ocean and the atmosphere, between the land and the air. And if we do that, we can discover these mechanisms and we can use this energy for the good, not for these very disruptive events. And the other big discovery in the so-called mesopelagic layer of the ocean that goes from 200 meters to 1,000 meters, the volume of living organisms that we have there is 10 times more than any other estimate that we had before. And this is fantastic. This confirms one of the reports of the crews of the submarines during the Second World War. They said every time the sun is going to the setup, when this happens, we have like the bottom of the ocean coming to the top. Is the migration, the largest migration that we have in our planet. These organisms come to the top at the end of the day. They eat the so-called white snow of the ocean. They go back, and this plays a huge role in the decarbonization process of our planet. If we are able to understand that, we can decarbonize in a most faster pace and solve also this issue. And this is an image, I think, in terms of the ocean in the future, we will have the model of the Nautilus, but without the Captain Nemo. So low intervention of the human species, and the intervention will be done by the machines, the drones, the sensors, the robots, and the autonomous vehicles. And this can change also a lot. So when we regard the economic exclusive zone of Portugal, and you have the representation in yellow of the economic exclusive zone based on the extension of the continental platform, we will have an area of around 4 million square kilometers under the jurisdiction of the Portuguese government. And what this means, we will have the 7th largest economic exclusive zone in our planet. And if you combine that with Spain, with France, we have in Europe some of the most impressive economic exclusive zones. And of course, this is a representation of the archipelagic concept that I just mentioned. If you look to the green area, we have a sort of hydrothermal fields going through the dorsal fracture of the Atlantic in the Azores archipelago. And these hydrothermal fields are associated with ecosystems and biological systems that were never seen before. These systems, these organisms, they live in thousands of meters deep in the ocean. We thought before that all the life in the ocean was related to the photosynthesis. It's not like that. We have here a sort of chemiosynthesis. So these organisms synthesize the energy directly from hydrogen sulfur, the most toxic material that we have in Earth. This is why I strongly defend all this area should be protected and should be exposed to investigation to see how these systems they can survive in these conditions. And of course, for medicine, for pharmaceutics, this is crucial to be addressed. And so in Azores, we have different projects that are going. I hope that University of Atlantic can materialize. And the last point I'd like to stress is the fantastic potential of the ocean regarding energy. The ocean, in fact, is a hidden factor of energy. If we look just to the tidal range, we can see the potential of all the Atlantic facade in Europe, including Portugal. And same for the wave power. So the estimation here, on the right side you have, if we add the ocean waves, the tidal currents, deep currents, thermal gradients, changes in salinity, the total potential can range to 80,000 terawatt-hour. Pay attention, 20,000 terawatt-hour is the total consumption of electricity in the whole planet. And in the ocean, we can have 4 times more. So this is a fantastic pet that can be developed in the future. It is part also of the strategic vision. And as you can see, in terms of the future, the health sciences, the ocean, the circular economy, they are part and key components of our plan. So just to finalize, in the PRR, we have infrastructure to support the blue economy and the blue hub. And the idea here is to create the shared lab to test the prototypes, to test the solutions, to create data centers in the ports, to convert the ports and the hubs and the areas, not only in the south of the country, but also port and in the islands, create these data centers, create centers for evaluating, monitoring, and collecting data, link this to the green and digital transition, link to the development of the Azores cluster, which can be very significant if you combine fishing with bioeconomy and the blue economy. If we use all the bio-solutions to develop materials that can replace plastics, fertilizers, and whatever. And of course, we have also the Center for the Atlantic Operations. We would like that within the plan of recovery and resilience, we can develop a naval platform, a Navy platform just to collect data, to monitor the ocean, to be a processing center of information in order to create digital twins of the ocean, but at the same time to act for emergency situations and also to make the surveillance of the ocean, and we deeply need that. So these are the key components, and I will just finalize because this is linked to a vision using the soft power of the country to work with North African countries and the Mediterranean European countries to fight desertification and the climatic issues, also to Asia, to the Lusophone countries, to the Atlantic countries, especially in the south, because we have the growing emergence of piracy in the south of Atlantic, and with the traditional allies, the United States and the United Kingdom, in order to see what can be done in terms of the North Atlantic and deterioration, the huge deterioration of the ocean system. And this is just to finalize. We can just map the risks and act not only to protect the trade and fight the piracy attacks that are increasing in the South Atlantic, pay attention to the energy power and the grids, the maritime border disputes, fight the ocean pollution, and also work in terms of stabilizing the climatic system of the Earth. Thank you very much.
This panel is about the ocean knowledge and awareness for better management. As you said, science told us that we are losing too much biodiversity in the sea. There are sustainable projects for a blue economy, but there are others that also come with some interrogation. For example, the deep sea mining, we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the technology to do so without damaging the oceans and the biodiversity they have. What do you think about this?
I think we know very little about the systems that we have in the ocean, the ecosystems, and also the mineral potential, the mineral resources. I think the Portuguese Navy, they have a very, very good project for mapping the floor of the ocean. I think we have to wait what will become from that. What we know today in the hydrothermal fields, this should be a protected area because there are ecosystems related to these hydrothermal fields that should be protected. And it's a new way of life on the bottom of the ocean. But if you look to the north of Azores, you have crusts of cobalt, of nickel, of manganese. We cannot have energy transition and electric vehicles without cobalt, without nickel, without lithium. If we don't have these resources, the energy transition will not happen. And the deterioration of the system
Don't we have it
will be.
on land?
So what can we do? We can recover part of this through the circular economy. If you look to Europe, we are a civilization that transforms resources into garbage in a speed without parallel in history. In the European Union, we produce per year around 4 billion tons of waste. Most of this waste is not treated. If this waste is treated through the circular economy, you can recover around 30%, 30, of the minerals, strategic minerals that we need. And this is a market that is valued at around 670 billion euros. It's a fantastic avenue for the future if we work on this direction. But besides that, we will still have to solve the problem of the strategic minerals. Don't forget that we have more than 1 billion cars that all day circulate in the planet. If you transform these cars in electric vehicles, the needs not only of lithium but special cobalt and nickel will be astonishing. So what is the solution? We have to transform also the paradigm in the cities using autonomous vehicles that will come, the public transportation. Maybe in cities we can liberate around 70 to 80% of the fleets. There is a model from the OECD just tested in the Lisbon, in our city. It demonstrates that with these notions of shared economy, so each one of us don't possess a vehicle, but can access to the vehicle and can access to the public services, maybe we could have this transformation. But for this transformation to happen, the most important revolution is the mind revolution, is to change completely the way we produce, we consume, and we live today. And I am not sure that we are prepared to do that, to change completely all these aspects of our life.
Yes, because we shouldn't try to solve a problem on land and creating a problem on sea.
Exactly.
So we must have an equilibrium on this.
But I believe strongly in science. If you look to the history of the human species, we were always able to produce solutions. And science, information, technology could be crucial to change this situation. And I defend that we have to intervene in the ocean only based in knowledge, in science, and a clear understanding how the ocean acts. And this is not clear today, that we understand most of the things.
Recently, Prime Minister António Costa stated that others have given priority to the moon or to Mars. Europe must embrace the oceans as a cause and a mission. Do you think this mission shift is a turning point for better management?
I think so. I think the ocean should be really a choice for Europe. And if you look to Europe, and this is my fear in terms of the European Union, when you look to the functioning of the European Union, we have more and more continentalized policies. And we don't pay enough attention to the Atlantic facade, to the Atlantic Ocean. Of course, we speak a lot, but if you look at the efforts and the practical implications, they are not there. So we have to embrace the oceans, change completely the mindset, and develop programs based on science, on collection of information, cooperation between universities, technical centers, enterprises, in order to understand better the ocean and transform completely this equilibrium. Because as Peter said very well, without healthy oceans, you don't have a healthy planet. So, and we need to, desperately, we need to change our course because the deterioration is there and is increasing a lot.
This pandemic has made a kind of halt on the climate crisis and the ocean crisis. Do you think that from now till a year from now, when the Ocean Summit, we hope, will be held here in Lisbon, we will do the steps enough fast to change things and to go on the right path?
I think your question is very relevant. We have all the solutions, we have all the understanding, we lack political will. Look to one important thing, and I am just waiting what will happen in Glasgow. We just need a single measure, the price of a ton of carbon, and at least $60 per ton, but fixed broadly for the entire planet. This will change everything. But there is a huge resistance. If in Glasgow we miss this, we will miss a big avenue for the future, because this can change everything. It will oblige the fossil fuel industry to act in new directions. It will promote the clean energy. It will promote the clean transition. But when you have these big summits, there are very good proclamations. The rhetoric is at the must, but the practical measures, they missed a lot, in my view. And we are, and the timing is passing. We have just 10 years to 12 years to change. If we don't fix a price for the ton of carbon, and at least $60, as I mentioned, it will be very difficult in the future. And Glasgow is the right thing to do.
Okay. Well, I would like to put more questions, but I think I don't have time, so I must now give the floor to Wanda Broto. And so, please. Wanda Broto is from Faculdade de Ciências da Universidade de Lisboa, do projeto MARE, and she will speak about a new project where she's involved.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak about my project, Portugal Twinning for Excellence and Innovation in Marine Science and Earth Observation, so PORTWIMS. This project is within the Age 2020 Twinning program, which aims to raise scientific performance of European countries by collaborating with other European countries. So our consortium is a small one, just 3 partners. Faculty of Science of the University of Lisbon is leading this project, and then we have Plymouth Marine Laboratory in PML in the United Kingdom and Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany. So this is a coordination and support action. And when we were writing this proposal, we did a SWOT analysis, and we identified the weaknesses in Portuguese marine science, such as weak networking capabilities, not enough international funding, capability, not promotion or lack of promotion of entrepreneurship and innovation, and limited access to oceanography cruises. So the project is framed into the picture that you see. So the main axes of this project are collaboration, capacity building, and innovation. And then within these three axes, we targeted as some specific areas within marine sciences, because marine sciences are so vast. So we target Earth observation, oceanographic research and modeling, and socio-economics, which includes ecosystem services and sustainability and all these things that you have been already hearing from. So this is the bulk of the project. So the work packages are networking, training, and building the future. And on the right-hand side, you see the outputs that we have to give to the European Commission. So starting with the training and with summer schools, the project started in September 2018, and we did one summer school in Portugal, which was Copernicus Ocean Training Service, which was a joint venture between Portwind's EUMETSAT. And also we did a summer course in Helgoland in Germany, where students had a hands-on experience with participating in a research vessel. And then we organized everything, from the coffee breaks to everything. We organized a conference, another summer school, which would be Blue Growth, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship for the United Nations Conference, which was to be held in Lisbon in 2020, but it was not, as we all know. So now we are aiming at June 2022 for this other summer school to promote innovation. We sent 6 participants to these international cruises across the Atlantic in 2018 and 2019. So 2 cruises in this program, which is the Atlantic Meridional Transect, which aims to study the Atlantic and to study the changes in the Atlantic due to climate change. And then also the Polarstern cruise also across the Atlantic. And the motto of this meeting is Blue Agenda in the Green Deal. So it's just on spot for this project, because blue for the ocean, green for the phytoplankton, which is the photosynthetic component of the ocean, and which gives the oxygen, or half of the oxygen that we breathe. And then the new technologies, and the new technology that, like Earth observation. So it's very important to foster these new technologies, and this is the counterpart of what was said before in the ocean. So we have all the sensors and the gliders and the robotics that can study the ocean from inside the ocean, and then you can also have study the ocean from Earth observation. And phytoplankton is the only living parameter that can be observed from space. And now you can have this fantastic technology in temporal resolution, with daily temporal resolutions, and with spatial resolutions, which are better and better. And then they give these nice pictures, which, apart from being nice, are also very informative. And this is the chlorophyll A concentration in our coast, in the south of Portugal. So outputs of Portwinds. So we are employing 7 young researchers, so contributing to jobs. And we have several projects. We have several national ones, but I'm only focusing on the funding that we got from international funding. So we got from 2018, 365,000 euros. So one H2020 project, which is Copernicus Evolution Research for Harmonized Transitional Water and Observation, again on Earth observation and water quality in coastal zones, which are very important to study and monitor. And then 3 projects from European Space Agency, and I'm very looking forward for this last project, which will start next September, primary productivity in upwelling systems, because the upwelling in our Portuguese coast is far from being completely understood, and the relationship with fisheries and so on will be certainly very interesting to study. We also have published online papers. This is May 2021. And regarding the relation with PRR, I've choose these targets, which are part of PRR. So obviously the objective is developing a more competitive, sustainable ocean economy. So regarding infrastructures to monitor coastal and marine regions with in situ data and laboratory analysis, this is something really very important that we could all work together, and we are training the people to do that, and the data should be free for everyone, as the satellite data is free for everyone, so everyone can study the ocean, come up with new applications. Also, reducing the plastic in fish gear, as it was talked already, so that's very important. Sustainability of fisheries, environmental sustainability, and blue economy. And so finally, also increasing ocean literacy, not only and starting with the youngsters, and so with the collaboration of Ciencia Viva, we've published this book targeting children and young teenagers. So thank you very much from all of us, this lot and a lot more, and again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention. Now it's time for a coffee break. We will return in 15 minutes. Thank you.
quando for depois a...
Welcome back to the Ministerial Conference, a blue agenda in the Green Deal. We'll now start the third panel dedicated to the theme, A Prosperous Ocean to Support Europe.
Olá de novo, vamos agora então para o terceiro e quarto painel desta tarde. Sorry, we are going to the third and fourth panel of this afternoon. And we start now with the Vice President of the European Investment Bank, Ricardo Felix, who's going to speak about the prosperous ocean to support Europe. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Let me start to say that it's a great pleasure to be here with you this afternoon in the city of Lisbon. I'd like to start thanking the Portuguese Presidency for bringing us here together, and in particular to thank the Minister of Sea, Ricardo Serrão Santos, for the kind invitation that he sent to us. Okay. So we live in exceptional times. That's something we all feel, and the impact of COVID-19 is still pretty much unfolding. And we have started in the current period, all the policymakers and the policy authorities to cushion the fallout that stemmed from COVID-19. But we need a plan, and we need a plan for the recovery that will start from now onwards. And we already see some glimpses of recovery, and the fact that we are here today, it's in fact the beginning of a return to a more normal life. But for the future, we need to ensure a green and a sustainable recovery, and this is of a major strategic importance. This is essentially also for the oceans and for the blue economy. The European Green Deal is a game changer. It has the potential to deliver the necessary paradigm shift for benefiting us and for benefiting the future generations. It tackles the crisis head-on. It is ambitious, it is comprehensive, and it has a strong focus on economic growth and on job creation. So the importance of the oceans is key. Oceans will play a major role to achieve the ambition set by the Green Deal. And I'm surely preaching to the converted in this room, but let me emphasize that the healthy oceans are just as important for the global economy as they are for the climate. Oceans, as you know, absorb close to 30% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Strange as it may sound, oceans are the lungs of our planet. Half of the world oxygen, the oxygen we breathe, is produced by phytoplankton in the oceans. Oceans have an enormous potential to drive global sustainable growth and to reduce poverty. And by 2030, according to existing estimates, the ocean economy could more than double its value compared to 2016. It means over $3 trillion of contribution to the world value added, to the world GDP. This is larger than the annual economic output of France, or of India, or of the United Kingdom. This is a huge opportunity for investors and for creating economic prosperity. And humankind's survival on Earth depends on oceans' health. We are not saving the planet, we are saving the humankind. Mobilizing private sector is key to develop an innovative blue economy. Europe needs to scale up the investments that are already in place. And significant support is available. It's available from the European Union through the EU budget, but also from the EIB through our funding that we extend every year. Engagement is the name of the game. A strong engagement by the national and by local authorities is critical to achieve the sustainable blue economy. EU recovery funds It's a unique opportunity to address market gaps and to develop a blue economy, to create a real blue economy market that is sustainable. Size and complexity of the blue economy requires very large amounts of investment, and this investment cannot be done solely by the public sector. Large amounts of private investment are needed. Public resources are just a drop in this ocean, but the public resources can be a very powerful drop if they are used in an efficient manner to mobilize private investment. A sustainable blue economy requires encouraging innovation. But for encouraging innovation, we need to create and put forward a clear and transparent legal framework. A framework that has inside the right incentives to foster private investor and to provide the necessary legal certainty to those who invest in the blue economy. The blue economy projects face constraints in assessing private funding. They are disruptive technologies and the markets are incomplete. This means that they need, or there is a role for the public sector, a role in risk-taking and a role in completing markets by creating the appropriate institutional framework that allows and provides certainty to private investors. Investor confidence and mobilize the private sector is critical. Mobilize private capital, mobilize private skills, mobilize private creativity and private dynamism. The private sector has features that we don't find in the public sector, and the public sector plays a role that the private sector cannot play by itself. So we need to have public institutions, and the EIB and the European Commission are putting in place financial instruments that bridge the financing gap and that support the implementation of climate innovation. We have the role of reduce the risk, sharing the risk with the private sector in those projects, and that's the best way to attract private investment, to attract private interest, to share risk and make projects that may seem too risky for private sector to take, safe enough or with a degree of risk that can be taken by the private sector. In a nutshell, to make the projects bankable. EIB Group is delivering on Blue Ambition. Some dedicated financial instruments already have been developed, and there you can see a number of them. Starting by the Blue Investment Fund of Funds. The Blue Investment Fund of Funds was launched under the leadership of the European Investment Fund, so the fund manager arm of the EIB. And this is backed by a guarantee from the European Commission under the European Fund for Strategic Investments, the so-called Juncker Plan. The objective is to finance firms with innovative products and services that deliver on the EU Green Deal through the blue economy. Provide financing to funds that target the blue economy or to firms that are backed by more general funds. Every time we invest with the private sector, such that we mobilize private funds and we crowd in the private investments. So public funds are used with the private funds to generate a much larger amount of investment mobilized. A second initiative in Portugal is the Portugal Blue Initiative. This is a project that is being implemented by EIF with Banco Português de Fomento, and we are speaking about 50 million euros to foster the blue economy ecosystem in Portugal. To funding startups, to funding small and medium enterprises, to fund mid-caps that are at every stage of development, from the startup stage to the scale-up stage to firms that are already established in the market. And we provide early-stage equity to support fund managers investing in blue economy companies. Innofin is a joint initiative by the European Investment Bank and the European Commission. This provides finance for innovators that works in all sectors, including the blue economy, because the blue economy sector is not a closed sector. It's a sector that has an ecosystem, that has a cluster around, and that goes well beyond solely the blue economy. And when it comes to our activity, the IB is supporting blue economy, since its establishment in 1958. It was quite a while ago. And we have pioneered investments in innovative ocean technologies. We have been the first lenders to provide project finance to offshore wind in Europe. EIB has been at the heart of financing the offshore wind technology. Over the last 15 years, it matured in the EU. It started from a very limited number of demonstration plants, and it progressed today to close to 25 gigawatts in capacity. EIB has co-financed close to 1/3 of all offshore wind production in Europe. It was a deliberate choice in early 2000s to engage with emerging renewable technologies on the basis of learning by doing, supporting projects, learning with the experience, and use this experience to come to other projects and do more and do better. This allows the EIB to become a reliable and a trustful partner for the offshore wind industry that allows EIB to play a role of an agency that not only finances, but also puts a quality stamp. So our due diligence is acknowledged by being rigorous and high quality and delivering high quality projects, and this allowed to quality stamp the projects so that we can bring in private financing. Since 2003, we have financed 33 offshore wind and transmission projects for an amount above 11 billion euros. And now we are jumping into the next big thing. EIB is committed to finance the next major innovation in offshore wind. Offshore wind technologies are evolving, and we are now moving to floating offshore wind. Floating offshore wind enables to tap resources at large depths and deploy offshore wind where fixed bottom is not feasible. The EIB has financed the first-of-a-kind wind float project, and this is precisely in Portugal, in the coast of Viana do Castelo, and it is a success. And we are now supporting the French floating wind energy program for 4 demonstration projects. And it's critical for investor confidence to have promoters and the ability to deliver and to affirm the performance of the technology in the market. That's how you build new markets. The name of the game today, it's not just address market failures, is in fact create new markets, create markets that did not exist, and by which having the public and the private sector getting together and moving forward allows to create markets that are deep, that are liquid enough, and that allows for the private sector to continue his job afterwards once the market grows, once the technology is mature. So crowding in is always the name of the game for what we do at EIB, supporting projects and use firepower to bring in private investment. Then on the strategies and on the programs that we have developed. Blue SOS, the Blue Sustainable Ocean Strategy. We launched it in 2019, and this steps up our efforts for sustainable blue economy. This is an investment, we plan to invest 2.5 billion euros until 2023 in sustainable ocean projects. With this 2.5 billion, we want to mobilize more than 5 billion in public plus private investment for the ocean economy, doubling the amount of investment by bringing in at least the same amount of private funds. The target is to support sustainable coast development, coastal protection projects, sustainable seafood production, green shipping, and blue biotechnology. So the sectors of the future in what concerns the blue economy. And the Clean Ocean Initiative. The Clean Ocean Initiative, it was launched in October 2018, together with Agence France Développement and KfW, the German promotional bank. Last year, Cassa de Depositi e Prestiti, the Italian Development Bank, and the Instituto de Crédito Oficial, the Spanish promotional bank, have joined the initiative. And emerging pollutants, including plastics, are one of the great threats for our ocean ecosystems. We identify projects that fight plastic waste in rivers, on the seas, and on coastal areas. And we finance 2 billion in public and private sector projects. That's target for 2023. We have already signed about 70% of the target amount thus far. To put in place a sustainable blue economy, governance is essential. For decades, the oceans cushioned the effects of the climate change by absorbing excess heat and carbon dioxide. Now with COVID-19 pandemics, we have additional challenges. We are further accelerating plastic pollution. It's not hard to see how much of the masks we use, of the individual protection equipment, is ending up in our beaches, in our sewage systems, that if not treated appropriately, will end up in the sea. So we can see the increasing pressure on marine and coastal ecosystems. A good ocean governance then will be essential. A contribution of governments and international financial institutions to foster the investment and to clean our oceans. Increased awareness and the participation of the private sector and of policymakers is very important regarding the economic base for investments in the sustainable blue economy, to increase the financing available for developing the blue economy. Governments, donors, financial institutions will play a pivotal role in driving the ocean sustainability agenda. Investors need to have clear guidance, need to have legal certainty towards a sustainable investment. Investors need to know what is blue and what is not blue, and what blue looks like. That's extremely important in order to provide certainty, avoid blue washing, and destroy the reputation and the confidence in the market, because markets are institutions, and as any institutions, live from the confidence of market participants and of the reputation. EIB is working with the World Wildlife Fund, with the United Nations Environmental Programme, with the European Commission, of course. As the EU Bank, we are the financial arm of the European Union, so we work close together under the principles and priorities of the European Commission. And we are also working with the World Bank and other financial institutions to set up the sustainable blue economy finance principles. The aim is to provide a clear and a guiding framework for financing sustainable sustainable ocean economy. This platform is bringing together financial institutions, scientists, corporates, and the civil society to promote an implementation of SDG 14, Life Below Water, and set the standards for the global economy, allowing the financial industry to mainstream sustainability of ocean-based sectors, and that's the role and that's the objective of this platform. Portugal was one of the first countries to endorse these principles. The engagement of the governments is a key step forward, and I'm delighted that Portugal has led the way in this respect. An integrated approach is now more relevant in the context of post-COVID-19 than what it was before. We need coordination. We need to work together in order to move forward. The recovery and stimulus measures are extremely important, and we must be able to address, of course, the immediate needs. Health demand, social situation, and the economy needs. There's no doubt about it. But we need to keep the long-term strategy and to mingle together the recovery and the long-term strategy, that accounting for economic and social and environmental sustainability. The adoption and implementation of principles will substantially assist this process by providing an integrated and an harmonized framework that ensures coordination between policymakers, financial institutions, multilateral development banks, and the private sector. This will play a central role. It is hard to overstate how important it is to step up actions to preserve the oceans and combat climate change. If we do not act, by the end of the century, the sea level will rise, could submerge the homeland of 280 million people. The cost of flood damages can increase from a magnitude that goes from 100 to 1,000 times. It is as simple as that, or as complex as that. Let's not forget that these are man-made problems. If we work together, these problems can be tackled. That's why the EIB stepped up its ambitions. We aim to mobilize more than 1 trillion of climate action and environmental sustainability until 2030. And at least half of our funding will be for climate action and environmental sustainability from 20 and 25 beyond. We are now at 40%. There is still 10 percentage points to go until 2025, and then provide at least 50% of our funding. We are speaking about 35 billion euros of funding per year. It's a quite substantial amount of funding. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Portugal for approving last month a new national ocean strategy. It is enshrining the commitment to protect the oceans and ensure its sustainable development, and that's very important. Last month, the EIB and the European Commission announced join forces to protect oceans and boost investment in the blue economy, to identify projects that can avoid and reduce the pollution of our oceans and of our seas, to find joint solutions for equity and guarantee funding for blue innovation and for the bioeconomy. From July 2021, single-use plastics will be banned across Europe. Countries around the world are expanding their marine protected areas. Conservation efforts and tighter fishing quotas are allowing the threatened species like sharks and the North Sea cod to recover. This and other success stories inspire us for further change. To conclude, raising the awareness about the importance of oceans and the threat posed by plastics, it's key. We published last week the Ocean Plastic Reduction Guide. This guide is intended to inspire action and change among planners, policymakers, and project promoters, focusing on promoting circular solutions to ocean plastic pollution. Ladies and gentlemen, the ocean is still resilient. If we invest in its protection and in sustainable development, it will recover. We owe it to us, but we owe it to our children, to the future generations, to try and to lead the way towards the financing of a sustainable blue economy. This is a challenge that we must face all and that we must face together. Blue economy is a key part of the green transition. And I used to say that we should remember that without enough blue, green is just yellow. And we cannot make our green transition to turn yellow. Thank you very much.
With so many millions for the blue sustainable economy, I guess there are none, I hope so, for the fossil fuels, the old
well, the
economies.
EIB decided to suspend the funding of fossil fuels, to discontinue the funding of any fossil fuel technologies since 2019, and in fact, since the end of 2020, no fossil fuel projects are being financed. But if you take the 10 years before, there's a limited amount of funding for fossil fuels, in fact.
And how do you control the projects that you fund to guarantee they are really sustainable and reliable?
That's part of the due diligence. So our project department is made of a number of engineers, economists, financial experts, climate experts, and all this due diligence is very strict. And we are, since the beginning of this year, putting a climate rating to any project that we approve. So this means that all projects are cross-checked, and the climate action is one of our public policy goals, meaning that all the projects are assessed against this. That said, we are providing 50% of funding from 2025 onwards, and now 40% to climate action and environmental sustainability. This does not mean, of course, that the remaining 60 today and 50 in the future will not be in activities that they cannot go to activities that are brown activities, of course, because then it was quite schizophrenic. So the rest of our projects follow the do not significantly harm principle, meaning that 50% will be for climate action and the remainder will be for other objectives, but they must take into account climate and should have a rating that at least they do not jeopardize the work that is being done.
Yeah, you spoke about in your intervention about innovation and new technologies such as marine renewable energies. They will have an important role in development in the future, but they also must be made with some caution because they will be offshore, they will be in the oceans, no?
Well, let's say that the future is renewable energy. How we move to renewable energy, it implies a strategy. That's what we have in our Climate Bank roadmap. Of course, that renewable energy must be made with caution in the sense that we need to support technologies that become at some point mature enough so that they are competitive. But at the same time, we need to provide the right incentives, and the carbon prices are critical in order to provide the right incentives. We need to have carbon prices that internalize the negative externalities of fossil fuels, because otherwise it's extremely difficult for renewable to be competitive as fast as needed so that we reach the zero net emissions by 2050. So that's a balance that needs to be put in place, but this needs to be a joint effort by policymakers, by financial institutions, and provide the right incentives to the private sector.
Mm-hmm. And what differentiates the EIB from other players in supporting the blue economy, the blue sustainable economy?
Well, what differentiates EIB from other players, I would say, in general, not only for the blue economy, but also for the blue economy, I used to describe this as two features. First, we are the most patient lender. We have shareholders, which are the EU member states, that are very patient. They are not after us for having dividends in the next year or in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. So they can wait, sit, and wait for cash flows that come well far in the future. So this allows us to extend lending for very long tenors. And this type of technologies, that's what they need. They need very long maturities such that the technologies become to a stage that they start being profitable and delivering cash flows. That's one key feature. The second key feature is risk-bearing capacity. So you have a balance sheet that allows us to bear risks. And by bearing risks, we can share risk with the private sector. We can go into the private sector and say, well, look, this is a very risky technology, but we can take part of the risk such that you take a risk that is more normal to the, or close to the risk that the private sector used to take. We take the rest. Sometimes it goes bad, sometimes it goes good, but for this we need to rely on our due diligence and on our expertise in order to reduce the technological risks, though assuming it, of course, that investing in all these technologies bears a risk. But that's the reason why we need a European Investment Bank, to bear risks that the private sector does not bear, but to invest with the private sector. So private sector needs to take their part of the risk. We take the rest of the risk. And we have risk-bearing capacity such that we can live with some unsuccessful projects, but our due diligence should ensure that most of our projects are successful. Just to give you an example, not on the sea side, but on the COVID side, we have financed BioNTech for what becomes the first COVID vaccine, the so-called Pfizer vaccine. It's Pfizer-BioNTech, and we have financed BioNTech for producing a vaccine against COVID well in the beginning of the COVID crisis, back in March or April 2020. We also financed another firm, CureVac. Nobody knows CureVac these days, but CureVac might be one of the next vaccines that comes to the market. That's what you do. Of course, that financing a vaccine is risky. It may fail, but in fact, in these two cases, it is delivering, but it takes time, of course, to deliver. BioNTech was the first. CureVac takes a bit more time. That's how we support innovation. That's the reason why we need a bank that has this type of features.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, each of these speakers, I would have lots of more questions for each of them, but we don't have time. So now I ask Mr. Paulo Rosa Santos from Faculdade de Engenharia do Porto, or Porto University of Engineer, who will speak about ports and the projects of also energy in ports, I guess. Take the floor, please.
Yes. Thank you very much for the introduction and also for the opportunity to be here and to present on behalf of the team the Portus project. As it was presented before, ports are very important for the economy, but they also have very significant energetic needs, and in some situations they are also responsible for relevant air pollution. But on the other hand, there is a significant amount of renewable energy in different forms, either within or nearby the ports, that can be harvested locally. So the goal of the Porto's projects is to promote the integrated use of renewable energy in ports and increase their energy efficiency, establishing a roadmap to a more competitive and sustainable sector. We are not looking only to a particular source of renewable energy. Our goal is to analyze the different renewables that are within or nearby the port and harvest those energies in order to support the energetic transition of the port. This project is coordinated by the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Porto, by a group that also belongs to the CIMAR Research Center. The partnership is composed by 18 partners from the 5 Atlantic area countries, so Portugal, Spain, France, United Kingdom, and Ireland. And we have 3 case study ports: the port of Leixões in Portugal, the port of Shannon-Foynes in Ireland, and the port of Vigo in Spain. So 3 different medium-sized ports with different characteristics, with different energetic demands. We have started by a characterization of the renewables available in each port, namely solar energy, tidal energy, wind energy, wave energy, among others. The idea was to identify the most suitable resources for each port and also to identify the best locations to harvest those renewable resources. We are now working on the development and optimization of different technological solutions to harvest that energy. The idea here is to improve their efficiency, their reliability, and also to reduce the cost of the energy that is produced. Besides this, let's say, more technological component of the projects, we also have some activities that are related to the connection with the society, to engage the society about marine renewables, in particular renewables that can be harvested nearby the ports, and also on the sustainability principles. One of those actions is the organization of thematic seminars on those topics. You can see here some examples of seminars that were organized in the past. We also have what we call open port events. During those days, the ports are open to the public, and here our goal is to inform the society about the benefits of using renewables, in particular marine renewables, and on the sustainability principles. So you can see here some figures of those events. Before concluding, I would like to highlight some of the main outputs of the project that is still running at the moment. So within the results, we have the assessment of the energy efficiency in the target ports, the definition of exploitation plans to support the harvesting of marine renewable energy, the creation of guidelines and roadmaps to support energy self-sufficiency and an energetic transition, the demonstration of some novel technologies and their capability to harvest renewables, to create a decision support system that is able to analyze for each port the best renewable resources that are available nearby the port, to identify the best locations to harvest those resources, and also to do a pre-design of some solutions to transform that energy in electrical energy, and also to do some very simple economical assessments to see the economical potential of those solutions. We are also supporting the proof of concept of some novel technologies. We are organizing open days and open labs to engage with the society and also some key stakeholders. And we are also organizing some training courses and some events to support the transference of knowledge to the society and to the end users. Thank you very much for your time and for the opportunity to come here and to present this interesting project. Thank you.
Thank you both. And now we're going to the next panel. It's about sustainable blue economy, and that is socially fair and equitable. And the speaker, Maria Nicolopoulou, will speak from the screen. Thank you, Maria. I'm going also to...
Yes, thank you very much, Carla. Boa tarde a todos. I will speak in English. Thank you very much for the invitation, and apologies for not being able to be there with you in person. I would also like to transmit the best wishes of and happy Oceans Day on behalf of our president, Krista Spenk. Unfortunately, she had other commitments and she couldn't join today. So my name is Maria Nicolopoulou. I'm a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, representing a Spanish trade union, Comisiones Obreras. For those of you who do not know the ESC, it is a consultative body of the European Union. Our job is to give a strong voice to the organized civil society by delivering opinions on different EU policies. So the committee has representatives from different EU countries and from different organizations. We have business associations, trade unions, consumers and youth associations, environmentalists, farmers, fishermen, people with disabilities. So as you can see, we're a very diverse organization, not only in terms of nationalities, but mostly in terms of backgrounds and interests. And this is our power, that the opinions that we deliver, they're fruit of a long debates and long discussions. And at the end, they are adopted with a broad consensus from the different stakeholders. Now, the blue economy is not a new subject for us. We've been advocating for more innovation and sustainability in the blue economy for a long time through our opinions. We have been discussing it already in 2014 on the innovation in the blue economy and how we need to realize the potential of our seas and oceans for job and growth. During the Finnish presidency, we were also very active on the subject. We organized events, we prepared an exploratory opinion precisely on the sustainable blue bioeconomy, linking it to the Sustainable Development Goals. And currently in the EC, we've started working already on the opinion in response to the Commission's communication on the sustainable blue economy. So seeing how the blue agenda is part of the Green Deal, one of the things that we always insist on in the ESC is that the Green Deal should be green and social deal. We cannot take care of the planet without the citizens' engagement. And of course, this requires measures that will mitigate the negative effects that will have on people's day-to-day life and their livelihood. All these structural and necessary changes. Nobody is challenging the changes that we need to take over. No? So leaving no one behind entitles empowering as many people as possible to play a positive and active role so that they can fully take part in the transition. And the civil society has to be consulted and effectively taken into account in all this process, from the planification and legislation process until the implementation and monitoring. And I cannot stress this strong enough. People need to be part of the game. And yet, I think the most difficult task is to have a common definition on what is fair and equitable when we have conflicts of interests. So is it fair for a fishing company, for example, who's been overexploiting natural resources, but generating a lot of revenue for the stakeholders and employing many people? Is it fair for them to ask them to shut down part of the activity? Or is it fair for the people who work in sectors that generate millions of euros, such as in the coastal tourism, for example, that they're not getting paid decent wages and they become working poor? Or is it fair for to finance blue projects that they are meant to achieve the objectives of the Green Deal, for example, the offshore energies, the wind generators that we've been talking about? But at the same time, they have obvious negative effects for other current activities like fishing, or probably have an impact on the ecosystem that surround them, or people living nearby. So is it fair and sustainable, for example, that sustainable products are currently so expensive? Basically, it's not black and white. It depends very much on who you are asking. You will get a different answer. So the thing is, where do we start? I think we should start by admitting that business as usual before the COVID situation is failing. We all agree on that. We all have to make an effort to change some of our practices. And we all live interconnected and depend on each other. This means that we need to set some thresholds and limits that have to be achieved and respected at all costs. And after that, to find solutions and trade-offs that more or less fit the different parties of the community. So basically, to have the will and ethics so as to find the real balance among the different stakeholders. I believe the essence on the whole discussion lies where Mr. Thompson as well mentioned, the very first title of the Commission's communication document, making the transition from blue growth to sustainable blue economy. And I believe we have arrived at the stage that we have started aligning our discourse and hopefully our actions with the commitments of the Sustainable Development Goals. We are passing from putting the economy first to realizing that people and the environment are equally important, if not even more. And yet again, compared with environmental or economic dimensions, both social issues and regional cohesion have so far been seen more as a separate policy areas rather than a truly integrated part of the sustainability policy. So the blue economy of the future must be socially fair and equitable in order to be truly sustainable and successful. And it is essential to balance these three aspects of sustainability, taking care of the environment while ensuring fair working conditions in a thriving economy. And when sometimes we do have the tendency, when we speak about sustainability, to think about the environment and eventually how to make money without putting a lot of pressure on natural resources. But sometimes we forget about the people, their living and working condition. And this is why it's so important to keep all the SDGs in mind at the same time. So the blue economy already touches upon a lot of SDGs, which is a very positive thing. But apart from the obvious ones related to life below water, climate, energy, poverty, zero hunger, it should be an enabler for gender equality, for decent works and economic growth, sustainable consumption and production, and so on. Now, in many of our ESC opinions, we have debated on the social, environmental, and economic aspects that we need to tackle at the same time. So we have debated a lot on how this sustainable economy we need looks like. It should be protecting the ecosystems. It should be conserving biodiversity. It has to deliver a just transition to a climate neutral way of life across the EU and foster sustainable entrepreneurship. And of course, educational systems across the EU, as Ms. Meisner also highlighted, they will play a key role on promoting such concepts, because It will change the way of thinking of the decision makers and leaders of tomorrow. And also, we need to think a little bit beyond the gross domestic product. The vision of social progress only relying on the pursuit of growth in GDP ignores important elements on individual and social well-being and fails to account properly the environmental and social considerations. So building the well-being economy must start by adopting a precautionary approach in which macroeconomic stability does not depend on GDP growth. We need to develop new indicators for economic performance and social progress at the same time. And we have also debated on how the action plan of the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights, among other things, will also help deliver equal opportunities of education and training. We've seen that skills are also very high on the list of concerns, thus on the agenda and the priorities. Ms. Biceka mentioned it already. So the Pact for Skills, it's strongly linked to the action plan of the European Pillar of Social Rights, and it will help cover this gap between the consumers' expectations that lead to business transformation and identify which skills are required to support the sustainable blue economy. And of course, not only the technical skills for the new blue and green jobs, but also the reskilling of people who will be forced to change sectors. And yet again, not everyone will be able to get upskilled and reskilled and gain employability. If the labor market was already complicated before the COVID crisis for people of certain age, for example, or for women in certain sectors, you can imagine that the new reality is even more challenging. And these are precisely the people who cannot be left behind. Now, when we're talking about jobs in the blue economy, we often discuss about the new future jobs that will be created and how they need to come with decent working conditions and fair wages. And I know it's easier to make something sustainable by design rather than fix it if it's not adequate. And nevertheless, we do not discuss enough about the current jobs in the blue economy. Many of them poorly paid and with extremely poor working conditions. So part of our agenda and of our plan, I think it should be focusing on improving the current situation as well, so as not to increase inequalities. Another aspect that we should be keeping in mind is how the EU businesses are interlinked, and they compete not only with each other, but on a global level. And there are structural anomalies, for example, in trade, in taxation, in ship flagging, that they need to be tackled so as to create a level playing field for companies. And they will be able to properly thrive and not putting the pressure on workers' salaries. And speaking about the globe, there are increasing voices that demand a fairer distribution of resources, of economic resources and natural resources. So the EU has already taken action to ensure, for example, that fishing is fair for all and rules are respected to avoid illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, for example. Let's hope to see some advances as well on the economical part, in balancing taxation and the subsidy system and so on. And of course, it's important for us to take into account in this balancing situation that the backbone of the European economy, the SMEs, all these small and medium or micro enterprises provide them with support to succeed in the transition and achieve sustainable competitiveness through better access to skills, finance, innovation, technology. Now, on our way towards a fair and inclusive blue economy, we urge the member states to involve the social economy sector in their national plans of recovery and resilience in the aftermath of the pandemics. The EC believes that the social economy bodies are strategic partners for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the European Pillar of Social Rights, and for the construction of a European Union which reaffirms that the economy has the essential purpose of serving the people. Another important element for environmental and sustainability that can boost as well economic and social prosperity is the circular potential of the blue economy. And the EEC is extremely committed to the acceleration towards a circular economy. We have created jointly with the European Commission the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, which is an online space where people can share their projects, their best practices, they can get inspired by others, they can stay informed on all the relevant circular economy events, build their network. So the focus is to foster policy dialogue among stakeholders, to exchange ideas, to identify barriers, and provide knowledge for a rapid transition to a circular way of production and consumption. And I'm actually very happy and looking forward to listening to the project pitch of iBlue that is coming in a few minutes. Interreg Med, which is one of the partners that run the project, is one of the 26 members of our platform's coordination group. Now, I know the name European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform is a bit long, it's not too catchy in terms of marketing, but I really encourage you to take a look at it and get inspired. Currently, within the platform, there are several interesting blue economy-related circular initiatives that illustrate precisely how the blue economy can be sustainable and fair. There are lots of projects like handling side stream recycling of waters in industrial fishing processes, or recycling marine litter, turning them into fuel for fishing boats, or loads of fashion products, shoes, mobile cases, sunglasses, anything you can imagine from plastic products. And there's even a project with handbags from salmon skins, so a lot of potential there. And there is one that I particularly like, a company that produces fashion accessories. They make bracelets and bags and other objects. I don't want to advertise the company. You can find it in the project, but this is the perfect example on how a blue project can be a catalyst to reduce marine litter, to build collaborative business ecosystems in Europe, help with labor inclusion, raise ecological awareness, and promote animal welfare. So what they do is the primary material are ghost nets that are collected by partners and NGOs. They are sent to a Norwegian company that entangles them and cleans them up without chemicals. So they are upscaled into bracelets. Everything that cannot be upscaled, it's turned into other fibers for other objects. And then the team itself and collaborative workshops that they have, they employ people with disabilities that they manufacture the bracelets in Germany. So as you can see, there's a huge potential for viable, sustainable economic models when they are run by people with social and ecological sensitivity. So just as a closing remark, in the EEC, we call for the European Union to propose a new vision of prosperity for people and the planet based on the principle of environmental sustainability, the right to decent life, and the protection of social values. Therefore,
sorry, Maria, but
yes,
I must ask you to finish because
I'm sorry, I wasn't controlling the time.
Sorry, no, it was wonderful to hear you, and I have one or two questions for you. Yeah, and before giving the floor to Alexandra Mendonça from iBlue, who will do the next project pitch. But no, you're there and there, okay. It's very important to have the equality, fairness in this sustainable blue economy or green economy or whatever economy, sustainable, fairness, equality, equitability, sorry, my English. But what is really being done to achieve these important objects? They are on the conclusions of the Council, they are on some plans and strategies, but they look to take too long to be applied or to have actions on those projects. Don't you think so?
Changes take time, that's for sure. This is what I was telling you about, that all the social aspects are treated separately, not as a whole. So when we start new projects, when we start new activities, they are taken into account beforehand. But when they're not, this is where it's difficult to integrate them and change the culture of the way we do businesses. It's a very good, of course, it's a very big step that the Council's conclusion, which I very much salute. And then our job of the civil society is precisely to push for these changes as quickly as possible.
And
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I didn't say the question. Women continue to be in the shadow when it comes to sea activities, as do young people. So what is needed to make sea activities more attractive for women and for young people?
You're talking to a trade unionist, so I would say definitely pay them well and have decent working conditions. I mean, it's normal that some jobs, they are harsh by definition, but if we improve the well-being of the people working in the sectors, they will become attractive.
And do you think in the post-pandemic times this will happen? You're not hearing me? Do you think in the post-pandemic times this can happen to make those jobs more attractive with better salaries and?
Sorry, I missed the beginning. I couldn't hear you.
In the post-pandemic times, do you think things will change and this sector will be more attractive for those? Sorry, I don't know. It's the problem of communication. Well, Maria, thank you very much. Maybe there is some problem of communication here, and we are late, so I pass the floor to Alexandra Mendoza from iBlue. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Hello. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here to present iBlue project. I represent our CDI, a development innovation network, the Portuguese partner of iBlue. We are a not-for-profit association based on a competence network of experts. Basically, we are a business support organization, and we provide technical advice and assistance in several areas, mainly in the fields of business innovation and sustainability. iBlue is a project co-funded by Interreg Med, involved 9 partners from 9 Med countries, and addressed the arting sector, but the outputs obtained are replicable in any other blue economy sector or in other sector, in fact. The main iBlue objective was to develop and share a business model integrating the 3 pillars of sustainability: economic, environmental, and social, and we also created an integrated system of indicators for monitoring sustainability performance. Of course, we have not invented the wheel, but the supporting tools created by iBlue have been considered by the sector SMEs as useful and challenging tools, as well as easy to understand and to implement. And finally, the main lesson that we have learned from the project is that sustainability is not necessarily a cause for additional costs. It's a source of value for all business operators and, of course, for all of us. And we have to learn how to deal with this and to make value from sustainability. It has been a long and fruitful day, and to close my presentation, I'd like to share with you a small video that presents in a glance the iBlue processes and results. So I don't know how to put the video on, but I would ask someone to do that.
iBlue, investing in sustainable blue growth and competitiveness, three-pillar business model, 3PBM, a project co-financed by the Interreg Med program, February 1, 2017 to January 31, 2020. Focused on the blue growth for studying and testing a business model methodology in the yachting sector, tailored to SMEs. It involves 9 partners: academics from Italy, France, Slovenia, Croatia, Chamber of Commerce and business organizations from Portugal, Spain, Albania, Greece, Cyprus. To promote innovation capacities in the Mediterranean, to develop a smart and sustainable growth, to increase the transnational activity, to focus on yachting sector and its sustainability through the 3-pillar business model methodology. The business model is a tool to understand how a company produces, distributes, and captures value. It permits to understand the structure of the business, and it is useful for innovation. 3PBM methodology aims at reviewing the existing business models methodology with the sustainability perspective. Sustainability according to 3 pillars: economic, environmental, and social. The methodology considers the SME's peculiarities in the yachting sector. Developed across the joint contribution of the entire partnership, from the perspective of the scientific knowledge, thanks to the academics, and from the point of view of the practical knowledge of the non-academic partners. 3PBM methodology comes from a joint work consisting in a questionnaire distribution and a set of interviews to 54 SMEs to reach the current situation of yachting sector, a best practices collection based on the 3 pillars of sustainability, preliminary tools to conduct pilot actions, SMEs database, sustainable indicator system, revision, testing, and implementation. SMEs and policymakers are the main target groups. 3 yachting subsectors are investigated: manufacture, service, and infrastructure. 3 main activities performed: studying, testing, and transferring. Studying to match results from the scientific literature on business models and from case studies in 9 countries. Testing to check the 3-pillar business model methodology within SMEs as a pragmatic tool. To apply this methodology, a piloting phase was set in 12 SMEs as business cases. 3 to 5 meetings were organized at each SME. Each meeting performed a specific phase of the methodology. Transferring to spread knowledge from the pilot actions as 18 methodology training sessions, 9 theoretical and 9 practical. To spread knowledge, other communication actions were performed to stakeholders. 9 local project presentations, 6 thematic seminars on Mediterranean yachting challenges, 9 local 3PBM methodology presentations. Outputs addressed and spread are a collection of existing best practices for sustainable innovation, a tested and replicable sustainability indicator system, the 3PBM methodology, tested and transferable to other SMEs and sectors, a plan of results portability, transferability protocols to policymakers for sustainable innovation in yachting sector, training sessions on the 3PBM methodology. What kind of advantages can yachting SMEs take from the 3PBM methodology?
La sostenibilità ha un prezzo e un consumatore certo. Io sono convinto che la sostenibilità sarà uno degli elementi di differenziazione di un prodotto o servizio. Ecco, e allora la sostenibilità da costo diventerà un valore che differenzierà i prodotti, un valore che, come oggi è il design, come oggi è l'emozione, l'estetica, la genuinità, si aggiungerà ha quelle caratteristiche di un'innovazione human driven che è tanto importante, quella della technology driven, e quindi la sostenibilità come fonte di valore e non più di costo.
iBlue Partnership would like to thank all the SMEs and their staff actively involved in the project activities, without whom any kind of study, test, and result could not have been achieved. The success of iBlue outcomes has been reached thanks to the strong collaboration and proactive attitude of these SMEs, working together with iBlue partners. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much for your presence. For the closing ceremony, we have the pleasure to announce His Excellency the Minister of the Sea, Ricardo Serrão Santos.
Thank you very much, dear remaining speakers, dear participants here in person and online. I am in fact the person who still keeps the participants that are sitting in this room away from the sunny day outside and from the history and the view of the Atlantic. And at the end of my talk, we will eventually conclude that I added nothing new to the excellent talks and the debate moderated by Carla Tomas. But be patient. I'm part of the system and I'm part of the game, and I will try to be brief as possible. And this has been a full day, and above all, I believe, a meaningful day dedicated to the ocean and the seas. One aim of our presidency was to bring the integrated maritime policy in the forefront of our debate, highlighting some of its important features, including the need for a sustainable economy. Let me remember that 14 years ago, at this same place, the CCB, during the former Portuguese Presidency of the European Council, the European Union adopted the European Integrated Maritime Policy. And in the following year, the European Commission, together with the Council and the European Parliament, adopted the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which is the environment pillar of the maritime policy. In it, it is recognized that, and I quote, Europe is intimately linked to the seas and oceans that surround it, and its use needs to be sustainable, as the marine environment is the base resource of all marine economic activities, and I end quoted. Meanwhile, 14 years later, the commitments built upon emerging global and European agendas has evolved. From the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development, through the Paris Agreement and the following climate COPs, to the EU Green Deal and subsidiary strategies as the European Biodiversity Strategy 2030, the Farm to Fork, or the Horizon Europe mission Starfish on healthy oceans, among others, new, more straightforward objectives and targets were framed. And during the last 5 years, the vision has broadened. The ocean is not just important for marine economic activities, but for the overall well-being and prosperity of mankind. And these are times to base policies on ocean-based solutions, where ecosystem services are to be taken seriously. We have made the integrated maritime policies one of the 2 priorities of our presidency. The other will be strictly focused with fisheries and conservation of marine resources, and we will have still 3 ministerial meetings of the Council of Fisheries. And let's return to this maritime policy. Last May, we approved Council conclusions on integrated maritime policy. Today, during the morning, we had a rich debate on those conclusions and on the need to effectively embark on sustainable blue economy, and now in the afternoon we are concluding the conference on integrated maritime policy and the United Nations 2013 goals, all under the umbrella of a blue agenda in the Green Deal. In the morning, the European Commissioner Virginijus Sinkevicius and 20 member states came together. In the afternoon, we had the opportunity to listen to the four thematic, because it was four thematic speakers: Peter Thompson, Charlina Viceva, Gesine Meissner, Antonio Costa Silva, Ricardo Mourinho Felix, and Marina Nicopoulou. We also learned about 4 projects that highlight the relevance of the sustainable blue economy. And I take the opportunity to thank you all for joining us on this endeavor. While the European Green Deal aims to make the European Union the first continent to be carbon neutral by 2050, the Integrated Maritime Policy will define new targets and goals to accompany this transformative agenda, implementing Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations Agenda for 2013, particularly SDG 14 about life below water. We want to make this connection between integrated maritime policy, the Green Deal, and the United Nations Agenda for 2030 very, very clear. We choose to hold this event today, the World Oceans Day, not only for its symbolism, but because the day conveys a purpose: to raise attention to the ocean and to the impact of our actions on the ocean, mobilizing us to sustainably manage the world's ocean lifeline of the planet. So, when finishing this day, I want to look forward with a message of hope. A new way to engage with the ocean, more inclusive and more connected, is now our ambition to 2022, turning into action the SDG 14 framed by the idea of a call of action set out in 2017 Ocean Conference. This is the process that we must pick after this year, to strive for tangible, ambitious, transformative action that can help us deliver the fulfillment of the SDG targets in 2030. While we promote the new Council conclusions on the integrated maritime policy based on 4 axes: health, knowledge, prosperity, and social equity at the European level, we are also strong supporters of other relevant international processes, namely the elaboration of an international legally binding instrument under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, on the conservation of sustainable use of marine biological diversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction, also the regular process of global reporting and assessment of the state of the marine environment, or the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. And I want to stress that the big difference in this title is Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, realigning science with the challenge of humanity and reorienting current knowledge toward global responsibility. We are also very engaged in the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy and other relevant ocean fora. And we remain proudly engaged in co-hosting with Kenya the 2nd United Nations Ocean Conference, aware of the fact that the United Nations Conference is part of a bigger process that includes also the CBD Conference of the Parties or the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, we have more than ever an opportunity to effectively address the issue of conservation and sustainable use of the ocean. So, let's put our hands to work to ensure that we pick up this process, not where we left it, but improved by all the experience that we had during this year, good and bad, and by the transformations that we have envisioned to our societies. The ocean is our future and our safety. I look forward to our collectively next steps. I invite you all to come to Lisbon in person to full steam ahead our goal of achieving SDG 14 at the United Nations Conference in June 2022. And finally, I want to acknowledge and make my thanks to Paula Madeira, Inês Gameiro, Márcia Marques, Gonçalo Viegas, Nuno Mendes, Miguel Fonseca, Isabel Marques da Silva, and all the technicians and photographers, and I forgot this morning to acknowledge and thank the interpreters that we don't have here. Thank you very much for being here, and let's put our soul in these projects. Thank you. No questions.